Chapter 27:30. Huang Yi. By the way, Brother Zhuo, why did you send me a message this time? Chen Fa put away the jade bottle and looked at Zhuowen happily. Zhuowen said, Brother Chen, there are only 3 days left until the Yun God Assembly. I want to use these 3 days to get a good understanding of the city within the city. Also, where will the Yun God Assembly be held? Chen Fa chuckled and patted his chest. Brother Zhuo, you've found the right person. I know the Huangji family's city like the back of my hand. Come with me. Then, Chen Fa took Zhuowen for a stroll around the city within the city. Every time they arrived at a well-known place, Chen Fa would talk non-stop about the characteristics of the place and the places that Zhuowen should pay attention to. Finally, Chen Fa brought Zhuowen to the center of the city within the city. At the center of the city was an incomparably huge palace. Describing the palace as golden and dazzling might be a bit of an understatement because the palace was simply too luxurious. This palace is the residence of the Huangji family's core members and high-level experts. It's the most luxurious place in the Huangji family. Chen Fa looked at the luxurious palace in front of him with undisguised envy in his eyes. In front of the palace there was an extremely vast square. The extravagance of this square was almost on par with the palace behind it. It had almost everything. At this moment, the square was extremely lively and bustling. Zhuowen even saw many cultivators using their power to build all kinds of support. It was similar to the stage on Earth in Zhuowen's previous life. Chen Fa pointed at the square and said to Zhuowen, Brother Zhuo, the Yun God Assembly will be held in this square. Do you see the tower in the center of the square? Zhuowen followed Chen Fa's finger and looked at the tower in front of him. He found that there was a support at the top of the tower. This support should be used to fix something. Zhuowen was puzzled. The Sun-Moon Demon Mirror is placed at the top of the tower. When the time comes, the Great Master will use the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror and envelop the entire plaza with its power. It is said that the entire plaza will fall into a strange space-time. At that time, the Flourishing God Assembly will officially begin, Chen Fa said. Zhuowen nodded. His gaze fell on the bracket at the top of the tower, and a look of anticipation appeared on his face. Zhuowen knew that the parasite he wanted was inside the Sun and Moon Demon Mirror. Once the High God Refinement Conference began, it would be the time for him, Zhuowen, to explore and obtain the parasite. However, he also knew that the Sun-Moon Demonic Mirror was under the control of the first head of the Huangji clan after all. He had to do it secretly. Otherwise, if he was discovered, he, Zhuowen, would really be unable to escape. Yo! Isn't this the gatekeeper, Chen Fa? Why aren't you guarding your door? What are you doing here? Suddenly, an ear-piercing voice was heard. As soon as the voice fell, a burst of laughter came from the other side. Zhuowen turned his head and saw a group of people coming from the east. The leader of the group was a young man with shoulder-length curly hair. The young man looked arrogant and insufferably arrogant. He was even more arrogant than Huang Zhe, the third prince of the Huangji clan. Huang Yi, why are you here? Chen Fa looked at the arrogant young man and couldn't help but frown slightly. Zhuowen revealed a look of understanding. Chen Fa had already told him about the direct descendants of the Huangji clan. There were a total of 5 heirs of the Huangji clan. Among them, Huang Zhe, whom Zhuowen had killed in the 8 heavens, was ranked 3rd among the 5 heirs. He was a hedonistic young master with a bad reputation. Moreover, his talent was not good. He was the heirs that the head master disliked the most. Huang Yi was the 2nd prince. His talent was mediocre and his cultivation was only at the Dao Yuan master realm. Like Huang Zhe, he was just a good-for-nothing. Of course, among the 5 princes of the Huangji clan, Huang Zhe and Huang Yi were good-for-nothings with mediocre talent. However, the other 3 princes were first-class geniuses. In particular, the eldest prince, Huang Wuqi, was exceptionally talented. He had cultivated for less than 3,000 years, and was already an eternal overlord. Moreover, it was said that Huang Wuqi had the potential to break through the eternal overlord realm and enter the third step of Tao validation before the age of 5,000. He was highly regarded by the three great masters of the Huangji clan and was one of the top monstrous geniuses in the host region. As for Huang Yi, Qin Fa had already told Zhuowen to be careful. Because Huang Yi and Qin Fa had some conflicts, he liked to make things difficult for Zhuowen whenever they met. Now that Zhuowen was walking with Qin Fa, he was afraid that he would attract Huang Yi's attention. Sure enough, after Qin Fa spoke, Huang Yi's gaze fell on Zhuowen and he kept sizing him up. When he discovered that Zhuowen's aura was only that of a heavenly Tao master, his eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. "Who is this trash? Why haven't I seen him before?" Huang Yi sneered. Zhuowen raised his eyebrows. He hadn't expected Huang Yi to call him trash. This was clearly an insult. "In my opinion, you don't seem to be any better than me, right?" Zhuowen replied indifferently. This sentence seemed to have angered Huang Yi. Huang Yi stared coldly at Zhuowen and said, "What did you say? Do you dare say it again in front of me?" Zhuowen looked at Huang Yi calmly and said, "I said you aren't any better than me? If you say I'm trash, then you're trash too." "Good, good, good." Huang Yi repeated the word good 3 times, but the murderous intent in his eyes was surging like a raging storm. Zhuowen's eyes turned cold. He had only retorted, and Huang Yi wanted to kill him. "Die!" Huang Yi stretched out his right hand and grabbed at Zhuowen without hesitation. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Zhuowen with a single palm strike. He was a Daoyuan master, so it was naturally easy for him to kill a heavenly Tao master with a single strike. Boom! Qin Fa stood in front of Zhuowen and pushed Huang Yi back with a single palm strike. He said in a low voice, "Second Prince, aren't you going too far? Brother Zhuo is my guest. Don't involve him in our conflict." Huang Yi's eyes narrowed and he took a few steps back. He looked coldly at Qin Fa and said, "Qin Fa, this trash dared to insult me. I didn't kill his entire family and only killed him. That's already the greatest mercy I can give him. How dare you stand in front of me? Aren't you looking down on me too much?" Qin Fa snorted coldly. He still stood in front of Zhuowen and stared coldly at Huang Yi. "Lu Qi, attack him. Blast Qin Fa away." Huang Yi ordered a man behind him. The man was silent. He took a step forward, and a surge of energy surged out of his body and poured onto Qin Fa like an avalanche. Qin Fa's expression changed slightly because he realized that the man's aura was extremely vast. He was actually an expert in the later stage of Hunyuan Master, and his cultivation was even higher than his. Chapter 27:31. Huang Yi enraged. Bang! 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 Instantly, Qin Fa and the guard, Lu Qi, began to fight. A terrifying force erupted, spreading out like ripples in all directions, distorting space and shattering the void. Qin Fa was only at the early stage of Hunyuan Lord, which was slightly weaker than Lu Qi's cultivation. Therefore, Qin Fa was instantly at a disadvantage. However, it wouldn't be easy for Lu Qi to defeat Qin Fa. After all, Qin Fa wasn't some random Tom, Dick, or Harry. The commotion caused by Qin Fa and Lu Qi's battle attracted the attention of many cultivators in the square. "That's Qin Fa from the Hall of Penal Law. The one fighting with him seems to be the second prince's bodyguard, Lu Qi. Why are the two of them fighting? Don't you know that Qin Fa has a conflict with the second prince? If Qin Fa wasn't valued by the Elder of Penal Law, the second prince would have cut him into pieces. With the Elder of Penal Law's support, the second prince can only find trouble with Qin Fa. Look, the second prince is walking towards the white-clothed youth behind Qin Fa. The white-clothed youth is only a heavenly Tao master. It seems like he's going to suffer." Discussions broke out, but the direction of the discussion quickly changed. The focus of attention shifted from Chen Fa and Lu Qi to the white-clothed youth not far away. The white-clothed youth was very ordinary. His aura was only that of a heavenly Tao master. He was considered insignificant in the entire square and wasn't worth mentioning. But now, in front of the white-clothed youth, the second son of the Huangji clan, Huang Yi, was slowly walking over, and the direction he was walking towards just happened to be where the white-clothed youth was. The crowd wasn't blind. They could see the malicious intent on Huang Yi's face. They knew that the white-clothed youth was going to suffer. Huang Yi was going to personally teach the white-clothed youth a lesson. Huang Yi's status was the same as Huang Zai's. His position in the Huangji clan was actually quite awkward. The Huangji aristocratic family valued talent and strength more than bloodline. Although Huang Yi was a direct descendant, his innate talent was the same as Huang Zai's. Moreover, he was a hedonistic son who liked to stir up trouble. There were many talented disciples in the Huangji clan who did not think highly of Huang Yi. Of course, no matter how useless Huang Yi was, he was still a Tao origin master. It was easy for a Tao origin bishop to teach a heavenly Tao master a lesson. Therefore, the spectators all silently mourned for the white-clothed youth. Huang Yi's gaze was ferocious as he slowly walked towards Zhuowen with a sinister smile on his face. Huang Yi had an extremely strong sense of superiority in his heart. As far as he was concerned, he only needed to make a move, and this white-clothed young man before him would kneel and beg for mercy. "Kneel down and lick my shoes clean. Then, raise your head and apologize to me." Huang Yi walked in front of Zhuowen and lifted his right foot. His cold eyes burst forth with a mocking light as he sneered. Zhuowen's gaze turned cold. This Huang Yi really did not know what was good for him. He, Zhuowen, did not intend to stir up trouble, but Huang Yi did not want to let him go. Did he really think that Zhuowen was easy to bully? "Scram," Zhuowen said coldly and did not pay any more attention to Huang Yi. Huang Yi squinted his eyes and sneered. "You're quite stubborn. However, I would like to see if you can still be so stubborn." As he spoke, Huang Yi's right hand formed into a claw and suddenly stretched out towards Zhuowen's neck. It was obvious that he wanted to grab Zhuowen like an eagle grabbing a chick. Many cultivators in the surroundings saw this scene and secretly shook their heads. They felt that this white-clothed youth did not know how to appreciate favors. He actually knew Huang Yi's identity and was still so stubborn. Wasn't he looking for trouble? Zhuowen sneered in his heart and casually threw out a punch. This punch was ordinary and looked like a punch thrown by a child. When Huang Yi saw that Zhuowen actually dared to throw out a punch, he could not help but laugh out loud. His eyes were filled with contempt and disdain. Crack! Suddenly, the crisp sound of bones cracking was heard. Immediately, the crowd looked at the scene in front of them in a daze. The moment Huang Yi's claw came into contact with the right fist of the white-clothed youth, it immediately twisted and bent. Then, the white-clothed youth's forearm, elbow, and even his arm were all twisted and broken into pieces. Bang! 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 A bloody mist erupted as Huang Yi's right hand was directly blasted into a bloody pulp. On the other hand, Zhuowen's ordinary punch was like a hot knife through butter. After annihilating Huang Yi's right arm, it smashed onto his chest. Puff! Huang Yi spat out a mouthful of blood. His waist arched like a cooked prawn and he was immediately sent flying. He was in a sorry state and crashed onto the ground. He kept twitching and struggling. The surrounding atmosphere suddenly became much colder. The crowd was shocked and did not dare to breathe loudly. They just stared blankly at the scene. Everyone was in disbelief. Although Huang Yi's talent was not good, he was still a Daoyuan master. A Daoyuan master was one realm higher than the Heaven Dao master. It was natural for a Daoyuan master to crush the Heaven Dao master. But now Huang Yi, who was a Daoyuan master, had been beaten up like a dead dog by the white-clothed youth, who was just a Heaven Dao master. This made everyone's jaws drop. What's going on? What just happened is really against common sense. The second prince was beaten up just like that. You're right. The second prince was really beaten up. Moreover, he was beaten up by the Heaven Dao Master with just one punch. It seems that this white-clothed youth is a tough guy. He hid his strength well. However, this white-clothed youth is too ruthless. He actually beat up the second prince. You should know that this is the Huangji family. Not many people dare to beat up the direct descendant of the Huangji family. This is the worst thing that has happened in the past few years. The crowd was discussing animatedly. However, when they looked at Zhuowen, they were first shocked and then ridiculed him. Although Huang Yi was a good-for-nothing, he was still the second prince of the Huangji family. His status was not something an ordinary disciple could compare to. Even if it was indeed Huang Yi's mistake at the beginning, there really wasn't anyone in the Huangji clan who dared to be as heavy-handed as Zhuowen, directly destroying Huang Yi's right arm. Looking at the injury on Huang Yi's right arm, everyone knew that it would be difficult for his right arm to recover without the help of precious herbs. Chen Fei and Lu Qi, who were originally standing together aggressively, were also stunned when they saw this scene. Lu Qi threw a punch at Chen Fei and immediately swept to Huang Yi's side like a hurricane. He kowtowed repeatedly and said, "Second prince, I did not protect you well. Please punish me." Huang Yi screamed in pain. His voice was like a pig facing a butcher's knife. It was extremely shrill and ear-piercing. "Lu Qi, you kill him for me." Huang Yi's face was pale. Due to the intense pain, he was stuttering and trembling. Chapter 2732. Reminder from the Law Enforcement Patriarch, how dare you hurt the second prince? You must be tired of living. I will kill you today as an apology to the second prince. Lu Qi's eyes were cold as he struck out with his right palm. Surging energy rippled out and then condensed into an even more vast and terrifying energy wave at the center. The shape of this energy wave was somewhat similar to a palm. Soon after, this energy wave suddenly descended, instantly arriving above Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. Just as he was about to make a move, he narrowed his eyes and quietly withdrew his right hand. Then, he stood calmly in place. Rumble! Just as the energy wave was about to hit Zhuowen's head, an even more powerful energy came from behind Zhuowen and finally hit the energy wave. Lu Qi's pupils constricted, and he involuntarily retreated backwards as a terrifying shock wave swept out. When Lu Qi came to a stop, there were two extremely deep marks on the ground in front of him. Those were the marks left by his feet because they could not bear the force of the impact. Pucci! Lu Qi froze in place, spitting out a mouthful of blood as he stared in horror at something behind Zhuowen. Behind Zhuowen, an old man in a loose robe slowly walked over. There were some wrinkles on the old man's face. His eyes were slightly downcast, but he exuded an even more profound and dignified aura. Elder of Law Enforcement. Lu Qi's face darkened as he recognized the old man. Second Prince Huang Yi also revealed an expression of disbelief as he stared blankly at the elder. Shortly after, when he regained his senses, he hurriedly cried out, "Disciplinary elder, what do you mean by this? Lu Qi is my personal bodyguard. What are you trying to do by attacking my personal bodyguard?" The surrounding people were also discussing spiritedly. Many of them guessed that the law enforcement elder had taken action because of the white-clothed young man. After all, Lu Qi had attacked the white-clothed young man, and the law enforcement elder had acted coincidentally. The law enforcement elder was obviously helping the white-clothed young man. The law enforcement elder's eyes were calm. He glanced at Zhuowen before looking at Huang Yi again. "Second Prince, this young man is a disciple of the Hall of Penal Law. I hope you can give me some face and not pursue this matter further." As soon as the law enforcement elder's words came out, the surrounding people were in an uproar. The law enforcement elder had always been impartial. His image of fairness and justice was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. He had never been biased. But now, the law enforcement elder, who had always been impartial, was openly siding with the white-clothed young man. Everyone couldn't help but wonder who the white-clothed young man was. He had actually provoked the law enforcement elder to openly side with him. Huang Yi's expression also turned ugly. Although he was the second prince, his status should be on par with the disciplinary elder. However, that wasn't the case. Huang Yi's talent was too weak, and he was only a profligate. Relying on the fact that he was a direct descendant, he was indeed able to intimidate others. However, compared to the elders of the Huang Ji family who possessed real power, his status was still much weaker. The law enforcement elder's words were above his. Since the former had spoken, he had to consider carefully. Second Prince, I won't let you suffer a loss. This is a golden spike pill. It can restore your right arm. Moreover, I will compensate you with 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals, said the law enforcement elder. Huang Yi's expression only improved when he saw the law enforcement elder's golden spike pill. The golden spike pill was a divine pill of mixed yuan level. It was extremely valuable. Moreover, it could completely restore the disability caused by heavenly law energy. The golden spike pill was perfect for Huang Yi's situation. Moreover, 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals was not a small sum. Even a prince like Huang Yi could not take out so many high-grade heavenly law origin crystals in a short period of time. In a spurt of energy, the law enforcement elder immediately took out a spirit ring and handed it to Huang Yi. Second Prince, there are 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals in this spirit ring. As for the golden spike pill, I will send a disciple to give it to you after this. Huang Yi's expression improved. He took the spirit ring and checked it. After confirming that there were indeed 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals inside, he nodded and forced himself to stand up. Since the law enforcement elder has come forward to plead for mercy, I will spare your worthless life. Huang Yi coldly glanced at Zhuowen and continued, however, you can't escape punishment. Break one of your arms, and I won't pursue this matter any further. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. If you want one of my arms, you can come and take it yourself. What are you dawdling over there for? Huang Yi's expression changed slightly, and then he said angrily, dog that doesn't know how to appreciate favors. If it wasn't for the law-enforcing elder, I would have already gotten someone to tear you apart. How could I let you be so arrogant and despotic? Do you really think I'm afraid of you today? Zhuowen smiled faintly. He didn't take Huang Yi seriously at all. Even if the law enforcement elder personally attacked Zhuowen, he wouldn't be afraid, let alone Huang Yi, who was only a Daoyuan master. Zhuowen wouldn't necessarily be afraid. Zhuowen's disregard angered Huang Yi instantly. Just as Huang Yi was about to explode, the law enforcement elder hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. Only then did Huang Yi's anger subside slightly. Little bastard, don't think that you'll be safe after escaping today. I'll let you off today for the sake of the law enforcement elder. But let me tell you, the law enforcement elder can protect you for a while, but do you think he can protect you forever? After saying this, Huang Yi hurriedly left with Lu Qi. He, the second prince, was defeated by a nobody in one move. This was too humiliating. Since he couldn't deal with Zhuowen now, he naturally wouldn't stay here to embarrass himself. After Huang Yi left, the surrounding cultivators gradually dispersed as well. Elder. Chen Fa hurriedly came before the law enforcement elder and said with a hint of shame. The law enforcement elder merely nodded at Chen Fa. Then, he looked at Zhuowen with a hint of sternness in his eyes. Zhuowen, do you know how stupid you were just now? I know that you're strong, but you're just a person after all. This is the core area of the Huang Ji family, a Dao Mansion-level force. Huang Yi is indeed no match for you. Even Huang Yi's personal guard, Lu Qi, is no match for you. However, Huang Yi is the second prince of the Huang Ji family. His status is far above yours. As long as Huang Yi gives the order, countless cultivators around here will be willing to work for him to kill you. If that really happens, your life will be in danger. The law enforcement elder spoke slowly, his voice filled with dissatisfaction. Chapter 27:33. The High God Assembly. Zhuan said lazily, Elder, there are some things I can compromise on, but when it comes to my principles, I won't back down. Especially when it comes to people like Huang Yi who provokes me. I'll beat them up one by one. I won't show any mercy. The enforcement elder gave Zhuan a deep look and sighed. Do as you wish. However, you have to be careful of Huang Yi. He will also be participating in the High God Assembly. Given his connections and methods, I'm afraid he'll be able to gather many powerful cultivators. When the time comes, he'll definitely make a move against you. Zhuan nodded. He didn't care much about Huang Yi. In other words, Zhuan didn't care about any of the younger generation participating in the High God Assembly. Zhuan knew very well that his current strength far surpassed his peers. Although his aura was only that of the Heavenly Tao Master, his strength had already surpassed first-step Tao confirmation cultivators. Moreover, with the terrifying Ho-E divine arrow, Zhuan even had the power to kill an eternal overlord. Since the High God Assembly was only for the younger generation of the Huangji clan under the age of 1000, any cultivator of the younger generation who could reach the first stage of the second step of Tao confirmation, such as the Master of Destiny, would be heaven-defying geniuses. As for a cultivator like the Heavenly Fate Lord, Zhuan really didn't think much of him. The enforcement elder frowned slightly when he saw that Zhuan didn't care. He didn't like Zhuan's attitude. However, the enforcement elder felt helpless. After all, he had personally invited this hot potato to the High God Assembly. There are still 3 days before the High God Assembly. Don't wander around during these 3 days. Otherwise, you'll get into trouble again. The law-enforcing elder instructed before he left the place. After this incident, Zhuan and Chen Fa didn't have any desire to continue strolling around. They returned to the Hall of Beheadings to prepare for the High God Assembly in 3 days. When Zhuan returned to his room, he activated the restriction and began to study alchemy and array Dao again. During this period of time, while he was improving his alchemy Dao, he did not lag behind in the aspect of array Dao either. Now, he was already a Heavenly Dao Array Dao Master. Furthermore, he had obtained the Array Dao inheritance left behind by Master Yuan Hui. This had greatly inspired Zhuan. Zhuan now felt that he was not far from becoming a primordial Dao Array Master. In these 3 days, he continued to study the Dao of formations. Perhaps he might have a breakthrough. 3 days quickly flew by. Zhuan, who was sitting cross-legged in a dark room, suddenly opened his eyes. Zhuan's eyes shone with an unbearable light as a terrifying invisible ripple extended from his forehead. This ripple was not the energy of the Heavenly Tao, but a kind of powerful spiritual energy. However, Zhuan quickly retracted the power of this invisible ripple. It seems like I have successfully broken through to the primordial Dao Array Dao Master. Master Yuan Hui's understanding of Array Dao is indeed extraordinary. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to break through so quickly, Zhuan muttered to himself with a smile on his face. In these 3 days, Zhuan had not only made a breakthrough in the Array Dao, but also in the Alchemy Dao. In these 3 days, Zhuan had refined over a dozen furnaces of Heavenly Fate pills. Although he failed every time, the number of half-finished Heavenly Fate pills he could refine had increased. When Zhuan's last batch of Heavenly Fate pills came out of the furnace, it was filled with half-finished Heavenly Fate pills. It could be said that Zhuan's alchemy Dao was getting closer and closer to the Heavenly Fate realm. At the very least, Zhuan could successfully refine half-finished Heavenly Fate pills. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door, followed by Chen Fa's voice. Zhuan knew that Chen Fa had called him out. The Flourishing God Assembly was about to begin today. When he opened the door, Zhuowen saw Chen Fa standing respectfully behind the law enforcement elder. Behind the law enforcement elder were 5 disciples. These 5 disciples were 3 men and 2 women. Zhuowen was no stranger to these 5 disciples. They were all disciples of the Hall of Penal Law, and could be considered as the elite disciples of the Hall of Penal Law. They were also the representatives of the Hall of Penal Law to participate in the Flourishing God Assembly. Senior Brother Zhuo. When the 5 saw Zhuowen open the door, they respectfully cupped their hands and saluted. Zhuowen's strength had already been widely spread in the Hall of Penal Law when Zhuowen defeated Zhou Ling. Now, all the disciples in the Hall of Penal Law knew that the white-clothed youth from the Hall of Penal Law was very strong and had defeated Deputy Hall Master Zhou Ling. What a rude guy. You actually made everyone wait for you. Your personality is still as arrogant and despotic as before. A neither cold nor cold voice sounded. Zhuowen turned his head and saw a bloated figure standing on the other side of the law enforcement elder. Wasn't this the Deputy Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Law, Zhou Ling, who had been knocked unconscious by Zhuowen? At this moment, Zhou Ling saw Zhuowen's gaze fall on him and immediately became nervous. The scene of him being beaten up by Zhuowen was still vivid in his mind. Zhuowen couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the clown Zhou Ling. Instead, he looked at Chen Fa on the other side and smiled. Congratulations, Brother Chen. You've successfully become a half-step Heaven's Will Master. At this moment, Chen Fa's smile was like a blooming chrysanthemum. It was extremely brilliant. He sincerely cupped his hands towards Zhuowen and said, Brother Zhuowen is too polite. If it weren't for your half-finished Heaven's Will pill, I wouldn't have been able to reach the half-step Heaven's Will realm in such a short time. When Chen Fa said this, the surroundings were in an uproar. Even the law enforcement elder looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Chen Fa's sudden promotion to half-step Heaven's Will Master caused an uproar in the Hall of Penal Law. All the disciples and even the law enforcement elder were guessing the specific reason why Chen Fa had become a half-step Heaven's Will Master. Now it seemed that it was because of the half-finished Heaven's Will pill that Zhuowen had given them. Zhuowen, you're really generous. The half-finished Heaven's Will pill should be quite useful to you. Giving it to Chen Fa like this is really good. The law enforcement elder said with a faint smile. Zhuowen only nodded and didn't say much. The half-finished Heaven's Will pill was personally refined by him. If he wanted it, it would be very easy for him to get it. All right, let's go to the plaza. Seeing that Zhuowen didn't want to say more, the law enforcement elder didn't intend to ask any more. He shouted and led the group out of the Hall of Penal Law. At this moment, the plaza was extremely lively. The crowd was like a dragon, bustling with activity. At this moment, the plaza was completely built. At the edge of the plaza, there was a tall railing. The surface of these railings was overflowing with colors and emitted an extremely powerful restrictive light. It was obvious that these railings weren't ordinary objects. They were probably formed by powerful restrictive spells. At this moment, the cultivators who came to the plaza were blocked outside by these railings. At the center of the plaza stood an extremely tall tower. At the top of this tower there was a bracket. Zhuowen knew that this bracket should be where the Huangji family's supreme treasure, the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror, was placed. As soon as Zhuowen entered the plaza, he felt several gazes fall on him. Moreover, these gazes contained inexplicable hostility. Chapter 2734. Galaxy of Stars, Second Brother, is this the audacious guy? At this moment, many figures had gathered around Huang Yi. One of them was a handsome young man with a unique temperament and a vast aura. He patted Huang Yi's shoulder, whose eyes were filled with killing intent, and smiled at Zhuowen. Originally, the people around Huang Yi were chatting happily, but after the young man spoke, everyone quieted down. Everyone looked at the young man with eyes full of awe. This extremely handsome young man was no stranger to everyone. He was the youngest heir of the Huangji family, the 5th heir of the Galaxy of Stars. Galaxy of Stars had only cultivated for 500 years and was already at the peak of Hunyuan Master. In the Huangji family, Galaxy of Stars cultivation speed was even more terrifying than that of Huangji family's number one genius, Huang Wuqi. It should be known that Huang Wuqi was extremely talented and had cultivated to the peak of Hunyuan Master before he was 600 years old. Galaxy of Stars, on the other hand, was already at the peak of Hunyuan Master before he was 500 years old. This was even more amazing than Huang Wuqi back then. In terms of aptitude, Galaxy of Stars was definitely the strongest among the 5 heirs. Even Huang Wuqi was slightly inferior. However, Huang Wuqi had cultivated much longer than Galaxy of Stars and was the eldest son. Now that he was an eternal overlord, he already held a high position in the Huangji family. In terms of status, Galaxy of Stars was far inferior to Galaxy of Stars. Of course, everyone in the Huangji family knew that it was only a matter of time before Galaxy of Stars reached Huang Wuqi's current height. Moreover, what made them even more odd was that the 3 heads of the Huangji family and the popular Huang Wuqi loved Galaxy of Stars even more. Especially Huang Wuqi, when he had time, he would often take the time to guide Galaxy of Stars in his cultivation. In the Huangji family, only Galaxy of Stars could receive such treatment. When Huang Yi saw that it was Galaxy of Stars, his face immediately revealed a flattering smile. He didn't dare to treat this person in front of him as a younger brother. This was a true genius of the Huangji aristocratic family. His status was far above his, so he did not dare to slight him. Xinghe, you came at the right time. That person is the Zhuowen that I told you about. He is simply arrogant and doesn't put our crown prince in his eyes. Previously, he actually slapped my face ruthlessly. Huang Yi quickly said. Galaxy of Stars glanced at Huang Yi and curiously looked at Zhuowen. Second brother, this man is only the heavenly Tao master. I heard that your right hand was crippled by him? Galaxy of Stars' words were full of sarcasm, but Huang Yi didn't seem to hear the sarcasm in Galaxy of Stars' words. He still smiled and nodded repeatedly. Galaxy, he is too arrogant this time. After I was defeated, he spread the word that the crown princes are all trash. I was so angry that my right hand was crippled by him. Huang Yi sighed. Originally, Lu Qi wanted to take action. But the hateful thing is that the enforcement elder actually sided with this bastard. Galaxy, can you tolerate this? Galaxy of Stars smirked and glanced at Huang Yi. He could see that Huang Yi had a good plan, but he didn't intend to expose his lie. Instead, he said indifferently, this man is indeed very arrogant. From the looks of it, Elder of Enforcement is biased toward this kid, Yang Qi said. It seems he thinks he'll be able to achieve great results in the High God Assembly. Second brother, you're a piece of trash, but you were crippled by the Heavenly Tao Lord. If I am lucky enough to meet this guy in the High God Assembly, I will help you deal with him. After saying that, Galaxy of Stars lazily leaned on the side and looked at the tower in the center of the plaza. He was participating in the High God Assembly to become a Heaven's Will Master. His current realm was already very high. As long as he wanted to, he could become a half-step Heaven's Will Master at any time. However, he suppressed his realm and planned to break through to the Heaven's Will Master realm in one go during the High God Assembly. It should be known that the Sun-Moon demonic mirror was the most precious treasure of the Huangji clan. It contained the power of the ancestral shaman venomous insect. He was 80% confident that he could use the mirror's power to become a Heaven's Will Master. Huang Yi glanced at Galaxy of Stars lazily leaning on the wall, and his face turned gloomy. Originally, he wanted Galaxy of Stars to teach Zhuowen a lesson. Unfortunately, Galaxy of Stars didn't care about his brotherly feelings. Huang Yi sighed inwardly. Galaxy of Stars had a cold temperament and looked down on his brothers. Even if he was beaten to death by Zhuowen, this guy wouldn't even frown. This guy was a ruthless person who was willing to pay any price and use any means to obtain greater power. Since Galaxy of Stars couldn't be relied on, Huang Yi knew that he could only rely on himself to eliminate Zhuowen. Huang Yi had prepared a lot of backup plans for this flourishing god assembly. He had gathered a group of talented disciples from the Huang Ji family. Once the flourishing god assembly began, Huang Yi would immediately look for Zhuowen, planning to kill him. Of course, Huang Yi had paid quite a price for this encirclement. After all, he wasn't like Galaxy of Stars. He didn't need to pay a price for many people to curry favor with him. Naturally, he needed to pay a certain amount of compensation for asking for help. Huang Yi's heart ached when he thought about how those geniuses had asked for an exorbitant price. At the same time, his hatred for Zhuowen grew. If it weren't for this kid, he wouldn't have become a laughingstock. He also wouldn't have had to spend so much effort to win over others and pay such a huge price. When the High God Assembly starts, I must make this kid kneel before me and let him have a taste of humiliation. Huang Yi looked in Zhuowen's direction and clenched his teeth, his hatred soaring to the sky. Zhuowen completely ignored Huang Yi. Instead, he was looking at the handsome youth not far away. This handsome youth shouldn't be very old, but his aura was much stronger than Huang Yi's. He could definitely be considered a genius among the younger generation. Brother Zhuo, that's the 5th prince of the Huangji clan, Galaxy of Stars. He's the most terrifying genius among the 5 princes. He's less than 500 years old, but he's already a peak primordial chaos master. Even the eldest prince, Huang Wuqi, wasn't as monstrous as him back then. Chen Fa, who was standing beside Zhuowen, said softly when he saw Zhuowen looking at Galaxy of Stars. Zhuowen nodded. Chen Fa had told him a lot about the High God Assembly, especially about Galaxy of Stars. Chen Fa had mentioned him a lot. Although Galaxy of Stars was only a peak primordial chaos master, his combat strength was much stronger than his cultivation level. It was said that when Galaxy of Stars was at the peak of primordial chaos master, he had killed Destiny Master Almighty with his bare hands. This matter had caused a sensation in the host region. He was able to challenge and kill a mighty figure at the 2nd step of the Dao validation with his cultivation base, at the 1st step of the Dao validation realm. Chapter 27:35. Master of the Huangji family. Even in a Dao Palace level force, it was extremely rare for a genius to appear who could kill a Master of Heaven's will who was an entire realm above him. Of course, the Dao Palace faction was a colossus, and there were still many prodigies like this. However, they were considered rare among the Dao Palace factions. The Galaxy of Stars even seemed to have attracted the attention of the 5 Dao Palace factions in the host territory. Of course, this was just attention. The Dao Palace faction's requirements for accepting disciples were abnormally high. Huang Wuqi was already crazy enough. It was said that Huang Wuqi had to be half a step into the 3rd step before he could have a chance of entering the Dao Palace faction. Of course, the harsh requirements of the Dao Palace faction were only for other factions. The requirements were much lower for local cultivators of the Dao Palace faction. After all, outsiders would always be outsiders. The Galaxy of Stars wasn't the only prodigy who had attracted the attention of the Dao Palace factions. There were also many prodigies in the host territory who had attracted the attention of the Dao Palace factions. There were even a few cases where the Dao Palace factions had accepted such prodigies before they had even proven their Dao because they were so heaven-defying. This matter had a far-reaching impact in the host territory and was widely spread. Chen Fa sighed softly when he saw that Zhuowen didn't seem to care. He felt that Zhuowen was too confident in himself. Zhuowen had previously displayed a move and defeated Zhou Ling, the Vice Hall Master of the Disciplinary Hall. However, to the Galaxy of Stars, Zhou Ling was just an ant that could be killed with a flip of his hand. The Galaxy of Stars would probably be able to cripple Zhou Ling in one move. However, judging from Zhuowen's previous performance, He was still inferior to the galaxy of stars. Chen Fa was very smart. He knew that if he continued speaking, it would obviously show that he didn't have confidence in Zhuowen. This would only make Zhuowen unhappy. Humph. You only know how to cause trouble for the disciplinary hall. If it weren't for the disciplinary elder protecting you, you would probably have died at the second prince's hands, Zhou Ling said in an extremely displeased tone. Vice Hall Master Zhou, if you don't like it, then bring it on. Let's see who's the real deal. Don't be like a meddlesome woman, gossiping at the side. Zhuowen glanced at Zhou Ling indifferently and said without any trace of politeness. These words caused Chen Fa and the other disciples to secretly laugh. Although Zhou Ling was the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws, this fellow did not have much real ability. He was only able to become the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws because he was good at sucking up to the second prince. What's more, this guy liked to order people around, and the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions were no exception. That was why the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions didn't like the Vice Hall Master at all. Now that they saw Zhou Ling suffer a loss in front of Zhuowen, they all felt great satisfaction. Zhou Ling was furious as she glared at Zhuowen. However, she quietly retreated a few steps behind the disciplinary elder, and looked at Zhuowen fearfully. He knew very well that although this white-clothed youth's aura was only that of a heavenly Tao master on the surface, his true strength was extremely terrifying. Having suffered a loss last time, Zhou Ling naturally did not dare to fight with Zhuowen again. Otherwise, wouldn't that be asking for a beating? If you don't dare, then shut your mouth. If you say another word, don't blame me for being merciless. Zhuowen sneered disdainfully. Zhou Ling trembled with anger, but did not dare to act out. He knew very well that this white-clothed youth before him would do as he said. If he fought here, then he would definitely end up like the Hall of Penal Laws, or even worse. After all, the Hall of Penal Laws was their own territory, and this place was under the watchful eyes of everyone. If he, the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws, was defeated by an unknown disciple here, he would really lose all face. Thinking of this, Zhou Ling no longer spoke. Instead, she snorted coldly and turned her face away. The disciplinary elder stood on the spot and turned a blind eye to the conflict between Zhuowen and Zhou Ling. Instead, he said indifferently, "When the Flourishing God Conference begins, the first master will activate the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. At that time, all you need to do is enter the fence by yourselves." "Elder, what are the rules of the Flourishing God Conference?" Zhuowen asked. "I'm not too sure about the specific rules of the Flourishing God Conference. When the first master appears, he will naturally explain. However, I'm guessing that it must be related to the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. For all of you who are participating in the Flourishing God Conference, it will only be beneficial and not harmful. Moreover, the participants this time are all disciples of the Huangji aristocratic family. The first head can't really let you all kill each other and won't make this gathering too extreme. Zhuowen, you don't have to worry about it." At this point, Elder of Law Enforcement glanced at Zhuowen with a meaningful look. Zhuowen nodded. He understood the disciplinary elder's meaning. Clearly, he was reminding Zhuowen not to worry too much about Huang Yi. "This time, I hope everyone will work hard and obtain a good ranking for our Hall of Penal Law," the disciplinary elder said. Apart from Zhuowen, Chen Fa and the others responded excitedly to the disciplinary elder. After a while, the noisy square quieted down, which attracted the attention of Zhuowen and the others. At the front of the square, the gate of the magnificent palace slowly opened, and two stalwart figures walked out from within. Behind the two stalwart figures were more than 10 people, each of whom had an extremely strong aura. Zhuowen looked at this group of people and narrowed his eyes. These more than 10 people were all supreme powerhouses in the second step of Tao validation, especially the two people in front. Their auras gave him a feeling that he could not see through them. "Brother Chen, Could these two fellows be the heads of the Huangji family? Zhuowen asked Chen Fa, who was beside him. Chen Fa nodded, his gaze revealed reverence as he said, "Yes, one of them is the first master, the other is the second master, whereas the long-haired man behind the two masters is the eldest heir, Huang Wuqi, whereas the others are all the core higher-ups of the Huangji clan. Usually, it is rare to see these higher-ups, but now they have all come out for the Flourishing God Conference. It can be seen that they attach great importance to this Flourishing God Conference." Hearing that, Zhuowen's gaze fell on the two heads again. The leader was a handsome young man who looked to be only 15 years old. However, he had a bald head. At first glance, he looked very much like a pure and innocent young novice monk. The second master was a fat man who looked like a mountain of meat. The second master's obesity was much more terrifying than Zhou Ling's. 3 Zhou spirits would probably only be on par with this second master. As for the first master, Huang Wuqi, behind the first master and second master, Huang Shan, his appearance was much more normal. His appearance was very ordinary, but his eyes shone with an extraordinary light. It could be seen that this person was not ordinary. Zhuowen sensed that Huang Wuqi's aura was much stronger than Kong Shi's. If Huang Wuqi were to face Kong Shi, he would be able to easily defeat him. Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief when he did not see Huang Lin behind him. Chapter 2736. Entering the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, however, Zhuowen was worried that Fu Qi would recognize him. After all, when he killed Ping Han, a trace of Fu Qi's primordial spirit had seen his face and sensed his aura. If Fu Qi also came to the square, it would be easy for him to recognize him. At that time, Fu Qi would definitely find trouble with him. Moreover, Huang Lin would also help him out for Fu Qi's sake. Now that Huang Lin had not returned, it was undoubtedly the best news for Zhuowen. The great master, Huang Wu, walked to the front of the plaza. After exchanging some pleasantries, he said in a clear voice, "My Huangji family has a total of 108 halls. Every hall has its own position and its own genius. Today, I, Huang Wu, would like to express my gratitude to all 108 halls for taking out the Sun-Moon demonic mirror to host the High God Assembly. In the High God Assembly, the stronger you are, the more benefits you will receive. If you want more benefits, you have to become stronger." Speaking until here, Huang Wu waved his sleeve. A ray of light shot out from his sleeve and landed on the tower in the center of the square. Immediately, a ray of dim light spread out. Then, everyone saw a boundary formed by the dim light in a radius of 300 feet around the center of the square. The boundary of the boundary happened to be the fence that had been set up around the square. The Sun-Moon demonic mirror's power can affect the surrounding space. Within this radius of 300 feet there is an endless world. In this endless world, there are many broken mirror pieces. These mirror pieces are the demonic mirror avatars that the Sun-Moon demonic mirror had nurtured for tens of thousands of years. They contain the essence of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. This demonic mirror avatar was broken by me, second brother, and third brother. The broken mirror pieces are not dangerous to you, but you still have to be careful. Although they are just mirror pieces, their offensive power is extremely terrifying. Once you subdue the mirror pieces, you can immediately absorb the essence of the mirror pieces and increase your cultivation. As for the benefits of the mirror pieces, I don't need to tell you. I'm sure all of you have heard about it from your hall masters. After the barrier was formed, Huang Wu placed his hands behind his back. Although his voice was very soft, it was exceptionally loud. It resounded in everyone's ears like an echo in an empty valley. Even the lazy galaxy of stars became spirited after hearing Huang Wu's words. Their eyes were full of passion. He was already very close to reaching the second step of Tao corroboration, and this time, he wanted to obtain the opportunity to advance to the second step of Tao corroboration. Zhuowen's eyes shone like lightning. The mirror of the sun-moon demonic mirror clone should contain the power of the ancestor wizard goo worms, which would bring unspeakable benefits to both his true body and his clone. The surrounding crowd was already in an uproar. They knew that the energy in the sun-moon demon mirror that could increase one's cultivation should be the fragment of the demon mirror. Of course, Zhuowen thought deeper than the others. The three heads of the Huangji clan had joined forces to barely break the demon mirror clone. This showed that the sun-moon demon mirror was not simple and its power was absolutely monstrous. However, at the same time, it also meant that the power within the sun-moon demon mirror was actually unable to be controlled by the three heads of the Huangji clan. Therefore, they would shatter the doppelgangers that the demon mirror gave birth to after a period of time. Their goal was to weaken the power of the demon mirror and make it easier to control. Thinking of this, Zhuowen became even more restless. His purpose for participating in the High God Conference was very clear. It was to obtain the ancestor wizard goo worms. If the sun-moon demon mirror was completely under the control of Huangwu and the others, it would not be easy for him to obtain and absorb the ancestor wizard goo worms. Now that the sun-moon demon mirror was not completely under the control of Huangwu and the others, Zhuowen still had a chance. Also, after you enter the endless world of the sun-moon demonic mirror, you can use any means you can think of to obtain it. Because the cultivators who die in the endless world will not truly die. Instead, they will be teleported out of the endless world. However, there's also a corresponding price to pay. That is, the energy of the mirror shards absorbed by the cultivators who died in the endless world will all be transferred to the winner's body. And for the next month, the winner will be in a weak state. Huangwu continued to speak, and the discussion below became much quieter. Many disciples were frowning. Obviously, Huangwu's rule was to let the cultivators who participated in the High God Conference kill each other. Fortunately, death in the endless world was not a true death. However, they would not be able to obtain any benefits and would be weakened for a month. This was definitely not good news for the cultivators who had a strong purpose. Then, I wish you all good luck. The High God Conference will last for a year. After a year, the sun-moon demon mirror will release the boundary. Huangwu smiled and waved his sleeve, opening more than 10 gaps in the fence around the square. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The moment the gaps appeared, some cultivators could not wait any longer. They flew out like a hurricane and entered the boundary. Zhuowen, Patriarch Law Enforcement, said, "If you have the energy to spare, take care of the disciples from the Hall of Beheadings and Executions. If you don't, then forget about it. Make sure you can protect yourself, and don't get eliminated." Zhuowen found it funny. The enforcement elder was as calm as water at the beginning. Now that the High God Conference had begun, he became nervous. "Elder, don't worry. I will take care of the disciples of the Hall of Penal Law. Also, this time, I, Zhuowen, will help your Hall of Penal Law win the first place," Zhuowen said with a smile. "Hurry up and enter." The enforcement elder did not care about Zhuowen's words. In his heart, he thought that Zhuowen was just boasting. Zhuowen did not explain. He did have the confidence, but there was no need to explain it to the enforcement elder. When the time came, it would be more effective for the enforcement elder to see. Zhuowen walked in the front, while Chen Fa and the other 6 people followed closely behind Zhuowen. They all knew that Zhuowen was not simple. They wanted to follow Zhuowen, hoping that they could stick together and survive this year. As soon as he entered the boundary, Zhuowen saw the scenery in front of him quickly passing by. It was as if he, Zhuowen, had flipped through an endless world and seen endless sceneries. In the end, Zhuowen stood in the middle of a desolate desert. Above his head were 9 scorching suns, and above him were 9 huge suns. The heat emitted by each sun was extremely shocking. The golden desert under Zhuowen's feet seemed to be unable to withstand the high temperature. Large areas of the desert were scorched black. Zhuowen looked around and found that Chen Fa and the others were not behind him. In this desert, he stood alone. It seems that entering this endless world is random. Chapter 2737. Searching for the venomous wizard worm. However, Zhuowen soon discovered that his divine sense was blocked by a powerful force, so his divine sense could only extend to a range of 100 meters. Zhuowen's current divine sense was extremely powerful. It could extend as far as the entire Dafan domain, but it could only extend to a range of 100 meters here. Zhuowen knew that there should be a powerful force shrouding the endless world. It was this force that repelled all other forces that entered this world. The endless world was simply too vast. To the endless world, 100 meters was simply a drop in the ocean. If he only relied on his divine sense to search for the sun-moon demonic mirror fragment, he did not know how long it would take. Moreover, Zhuowen was now eager to know the location of the venomous wizard worm hidden in the sun-moon demonic mirror. After all, this venomous wizard worm was the key to whether his Panga sacred body could successfully advance to the 4-star realm. Zhuowen stopped on a small sand dune, withdrew his divine sense, closed his eyes, and began to sense with his own Zhurong venomous worm. The 12 ancestors of sorcery were natural enemies. Since he had the Zhurong venomous worm, he could naturally sense the other venomous wizard worm in the sun-moon demonic mirror. Zhuowen opened his eyes. Soon after, he extended his right hand through the air, and a bright red flame appeared at the center of his palm. The flame looked like a venomous wizard worm. As soon as it appeared, it chose a direction and shot out. It was formed by a trace of the essence of the Zhurong venomous worm. It was like a clone of the Zhurong venomous worm, and was extremely sensitive to other venomous wizard worms. Zhuowen followed closely behind the flame, and swept out like an aurora. Zhuowen had been traveling in this desert for 3 days and 3 nights, but he was still in the desert. This showed how vast this desert was. In the process of traveling, Zhuowen also found that he did not meet many other practitioners who had entered the endless world. It should be known that there were at least thousands of practitioners who had entered the endless world. However, he had not met anyone after traveling for 3 days and 3 nights. This showed how vast the endless world was. Boom! After flying for 2 days and 2 nights, Zhuowen saw the edge of the desert. At the edge of the desert was another landscape world. There was a lush green prairie, and its area was comparable to the desert. However, at the edge of the desert, a terrifying energy exploded, sweeping out a terrifying storm, instantly enveloping Zhuowen's figure. Ha ha! Another fat sheep. Sure enough, guarding the borders of these 2 worlds was the best choice. In just 5 days we've already reaped 2 rewards. A voice that was filled with wild joy was transmitted from under the sand. Immediately, a sand dune not far from the storm broke apart and 2 men rushed out. Among them, the green-clothed man's voice was more arrogant. He looked at Zhuowen, who was swept into the storm, and laughed loudly. His eyes were filled with joy. On the other hand, the white-clothed man beside the green-clothed man was much calmer. He shook his head and said, "The High God Convention has just begun. It's really not worth it for you to act so quickly. Some practitioners haven't even found the demon mirror fragment yet." The green-clothed man did not take it seriously and said, "We've been waiting here all this time. Now we're just familiarizing ourselves with it and experimenting. When the time comes, we'll act again in a few months. Isn't it the same? All of this is to increase our chances of catching him." The white-clothed man did not answer. Instead, he looked at the storm and said, "Let's undo this formation first. After all, this is an origin-grade formation. The practitioner who entered the formation just now was only a heavenly Tao master. I'm afraid he'll die without a doubt." The green-clothed man chuckled. Just as he was about to undo the formation, his pupils shrank as he discovered that the storm that seemed capable of reaching the heavens had collapsed in an instant, dispersing into dust. Amidst the dust, a young man in snow-white clothes slowly walked out. Zhuowen's eyes were like torches as he stared coldly at the stiffened green-clothed man and white-clothed man below him. He asked, Did you guys deliberately set up this formation here? The green-clothed man frowned slightly and did not answer Zhuowen's question. Instead, he asked rudely, "You're also a divine array master?" Zhuowen did not say anything else. Instead, he stretched out his right hand and punched at the green-clothed man. The green-clothed man was only a heavenly Tao master. How dare he deliberately set up a formation to kill him? Zhuowen was not so good-tempered that he would pretend that nothing had happened. Of course, since the green-clothed man and the white-clothed man were able to possess an origin-grade formation, it was obvious that they were rich. How dare a mere heavenly Tao master attack me? You're courting death. The green-clothed man sneered. He also clenched his right hand into a fist and punched it out toward Zhuowen. Crack! Unfortunately, the green-clothed man's right fist was instantly smashed into a cloud of blood mist. Then, the green-clothed man screamed in agony as his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. He could not be more dead than he was. The white-clothed man, who had been watching the show, was stunned. He could not believe what he had seen. The white-clothed young man, who was only a heavenly Tao master, had killed his companion in one move. What kind of strength did that require? Let's go. The white-clothed man realized that something was amiss. After he came to his senses, he immediately fled in the opposite direction at an extremely fast speed. Unfortunately, no matter how fast the white-clothed man was, could he be faster than Zhuowen? Not long after he had fled, the white-clothed man screamed in agony and followed in the footsteps of the green-clothed man. After killing the two men, Zhuowen discovered that there were 8 thumb-sized green lights that flew out from their bodies. These green lights contained something similar to mirror fragments. Zhuowen knew that these things should be the fragments of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar that Huangwu had mentioned before. At the moment when these 8 green lights entered his body, Zhuowen immediately felt that his cultivation in his body seemed to have improved a little. Although the improvement was negligible, it was enough to shock Zhuowen. It should be known that the difficulty of improving the cultivation of Zhuowen's original body was much more difficult than that of ordinary practitioners. No one knew that when he had been promoted to Heavenly Tao Master, he had used a pile of special-grade Heavenly Tao origin crystals to barely be promoted. Now, just by absorbing 8 fragments of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar, he could clearly feel the improvement of his cultivation. It could be seen that the energy contained in the Demon Mirror avatar was very beneficial to his cultivation. Thinking of the various benefits of these fragments, Zhuowen's heart was filled with enthusiasm. He knew that as long as there were enough fragments of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar, it should be more than enough for his original body to be promoted to Daoyuan Master. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to find the Demon Mirror avatar. Instead, he planned to use the Zhurong venomous insect to find the location of the ancestral wizard venomous insect hidden in the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror avatar. Chapter 2738. Shan Tianlong Zhuowen continued to move forward. What he didn't know was that in the endless world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, many cultivators were constantly searching for the demonic mirror fragments. At the same time, terrifying battles broke out all over the endless world as they fought for the demonic mirror fragments. However, everyone knew that these were just small skirmishes. The more time passed, the stronger the remaining cultivators would be. When the time came, it would be a real fierce battle. As long as one could kill the other, they would be able to obtain more energy and break through to a higher realm. In the lush forest, a handsome young man shot out like a cheetah and kicked the back of the head of a cultivator who was advancing. Bam! The cultivator was caught off guard and was kicked in the face. He fell to the ground dead as can be. It's the 5th prince, Galaxy of Stars. Let's run. The companions of the other 2 cultivators who were ambushed didn't expect that someone would suddenly attack them. By the time they realized it, their companions were already dead. When they saw the face of the person who ambushed them, they screamed and ran away immediately, not daring to have any thoughts of fighting. Galaxy of Stars was one of the seated contestants of the High God Conference. They knew that they would definitely lose if they encountered such a person. Unfortunately, Huang Xinghe did not intend to let the two of them leave. With a leap, he flew through the air like a ghost. 2 miserable shrieks were heard as the two of them were dealt with by Huang Xinghe alone. Galaxy of Stars stood on the spot, his eyes scarlet and filled with bloodlust. More than 10 green lights shot out from the corpses of the 3 cultivators and merged into his body. As expected of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. These demonic mirror fragments are really useful to me. As long as I get enough demonic mirror fragments, I won't have to worry about not being able to reach the second step. Huang Xinghe laughed heartily and disappeared from where he stood. He planned to continue searching for the demonic mirror fragment. Of course, he wouldn't show any mercy to the cultivators he met along the way. He would kill them and take the demonic mirror fragments from them. Fifth younger brother is really crazy. It seemed like there were only a few disciples among the participants of the High God competition who could restrain him. Once fifth younger brother successfully breaks through to the Heavenly Fate Lord realm, I don't think any of the participants can compete with him. Not long after Galaxy of Stars left, a refined man slowly walked out from the depths of the forest. He looked like he was in his 30s. If there was someone here, they would be able to Lu-Yi translation. This was because he was Huang Ju, the 4th prince of the Huang Ji family. Huang Ju was an extremely low-profile person. Although his talent wasn't as good as Huang Xinghe's, he was still much stronger than ordinary geniuses. However, his scheming was much deeper than Huang Xinghe's. However, the crazier fifth brother is, the better it is for me. If there is a chance, fifth brother, don't blame me for not caring about our brotherhood. Huang Ju smiled as he muttered to himself. Outside the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, there was a huge square. Many cultivators were surrounding the fence, but their gazes were fixed on the barrier within the fence. Through the barrier, they discovered that the cultivators who entered the barrier were all involuntarily sitting cross-legged on the ground with their eyes closed, as if they had fallen into some kind of meditation. At the same time, some of the cultivators inside the barrier slowly opened their eyes, revealing a confused expression. However, before these cultivators could get up, a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas came crashing down. Then, these cultivators were involuntarily pushed out of the range of the fence. The faces of the hall masters of their respective halls turned ugly after they were pushed out. They knew that being pushed out of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror meant that the cultivators had been killed in the endless world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. They had been eliminated from the High God Conference. Among the eliminated cultivators, there were 2 that Zhuowen was familiar with. They were the green-clothed man and the white-clothed man that Zhuowen had killed with a single move. Who the hell is that guy? He's clearly the Heavenly Tao Master, so how could he use such a powerful force? The green-clothed man was still in a daze as he muttered to himself in disbelief. The white-clothed man smiled bitterly and said, "I'm not sure either. I've never heard of him in the Huangji clan. I've already investigated those powerful disciples, but he wasn't among them. It seems like I've overlooked his information." The green-clothed man and the white-clothed man exchanged glances. They could see the dispirited look in each other's eyes. At the same time, they could feel a sense of weakness in their bodies. They knew that this was the aftereffect of being killed in the endless world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. They would be so weak for the next month that it would affect their cultivation. This Sun-Moon demonic mirror is truly mysterious. It can actually seize a strand of a cultivator's soul and create an endless world within the mirror. Moreover, it can make the cultivator feel that the endless world is the same as the real world. Even the most powerful spatial artifact can't achieve this. The enforcement elder couldn't help but exclaim in admiration as he looked at the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. "Enforcement elder, what kind of trash did your Hall of Penal Law send this time? Even a Heavenly Tao Master was sent here. Is there no one else in your Hall of Penal Law?" An ear-piercing voice rang out, causing the law enforcement elder to frown. The enforcement elder slowly turned his head and looked at the bearded man who was walking towards him. He said coldly, "Shan Tianlong, whether our Hall of Penal Law has people or not has nothing to do with your Hall of Rules. You're meddling too much." The bearded man named Shan Tianlong curled the corners of his mouth and said indifferently, "Your Hall of Penal Laws Chen Fa is pretty good. However, if he meets our Hall of Rules Lu Long, I think he'll only become an insignificant stepping stone." The enforcement elder didn't want to talk to Shan Tianlong anymore, so he simply closed his eyes and rested. The Hall of Rules had always been at odds with the Hall of Penal Law, especially Shan Tianlong. In his early years, Shan Tianlong had been defeated by the enforcement elder, so he had always regarded the enforcement elder as a thorn in his side. However, Shan Tianlong later lived in the mountains and his cultivation even surpassed the enforcement elder. Moreover, the Hall of Rules he was in charge of had become one of the largest branches of the Huangji family. It was far superior to the Hall of Penal Law and had produced many talent. Shan Tianlong was very depressed because he was defeated by the enforcement elder in the past and regarded it as a disgrace. Therefore, every time Shan Tianlong met the enforcement elder, he would mock him, especially the juniors of the Hall of Penal Law that the enforcement elder was in charge of. Chapter 2739. A sudden bet. The law enforcement patriarch opened his eyes and looked coldly at Shan Tianlong. "Shan Tianlong, that's enough. I don't want to talk to you about the younger generation. After all, the results of the Flourishing God Assembly haven't come out yet. How can you be so sure that the disciples of my Hall of Penal Law are inferior to your Hall of Rules?" Shan Tianlong sneered. "You're quite confident this time. How about this, let's make a bet. Let's bet on the ranking of our two halls. If one of us is ranked lower, that side will lose. How about it?" The law enforcement patriarch frowned and hesitated. The Hall of Rules was one of the top halls in the Huangji clan, especially Lu Long, who was less than 1,000 years old but was also at the late stage of Lord Hunyuan. Although his cultivation couldn't be compared with the galaxy of stars, his strength couldn't be underestimated. He was a well-known genius of the Huangji clan. Chen Fa could be considered the strongest disciple of the Hall of Penal Law, but he was only at the early stage of Lord Hunyuan. Compared with Lu Long, there was a big gap. The law enforcement patriarch thought of Zhuowen and then looked at the complacent Shan Tianlong. He was silent for a moment and then said coldly, "Okay, I'll bet with you. But what are you going to bet with me?" Shan Tianlong looked at the law enforcement patriarch in surprise. Obviously, he didn't expect the law enforcement patriarch to agree so easily. 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals or items of the same value. Shan Tianlong said indifferently. At this moment, Shan Tianlong and the law enforcement patriarch, who were at loggerheads with each other, had attracted the attention of the surrounding cultivators. Most of the cultivators were well aware of the grudge between Shan Tianlong and the law enforcement patriarch. Especially after Shan Tianlong proposed the bet, the surrounding cultivators were in an uproar. They subconsciously thought that the law enforcement patriarch would definitely not agree to the bet. After all, Lu Long of the Hall of Rules was much stronger than Chen Fa of the Hall of Penal Law. Moreover, the Hall of Penal Law had 5 or 6 disciples of Lord Primordial Chaos, while the Hall of Penal Law only had Chen Fa. There was a great disparity between the strength of the disciples sent by the two sides. No matter how one looked at it, this was a very unequal gambling fight. As long as the law-enforcing patriarch was not out of his mind, he would not agree. But to their surprise, the law enforcement patriarch was out of his mind and agreed to Shan Tianlong's bet. Many of the cultivators there secretly shook their heads. They felt that the enforcement elder was simply acting on impulse. Once all the disciples from the Hall of Justice were eliminated, he would likely regret it. 100,000 high-class heavenly Tao origin crystals was no small number. Even hall masters like Shan Tianlong and the enforcement elder would find it very difficult to easily take out such a terrifying number of high-class heavenly Tao origin crystals. Just when everyone thought that the law enforcement elder would hesitate, they didn't expect that the law enforcement elder would simply nod and agree. Shan Tianlong also didn't expect the law enforcement elder to agree so easily after learning of such a huge bet. However, Shan Tianlong didn't think too much about it. Instead, he laughed heartily and gave the law enforcement elder a thumbs up. Law enforcement elder, you are indeed a true man. You know that there are tigers on the mountain, yet you still insist on going there. It seems that I will be getting the 100,000 high-class heavenly Tao origin crystals for free. The law enforcement elder didn't take it seriously and said, that may not be the case. Let's wait until the results are out first. At the same time, Huangji clan's upper echelons, including Huangwu, were standing silently on the stairs at the front of the square. Although the High God Convention would be held for nearly a year, which seemed like a long time, it was only the blink of an eye for these true cultivators. Wuji, I heard that a few months before the High God Convention, you have been guiding Xinghe since you came out of seclusion. What do you think Xinghe's ranking will be in the High God Convention this time? Huangwu's bald head was like a mirror as he smiled at the ordinary youth standing behind him. The youth's appearance was ordinary and unremarkable, but apart from Huangwu and Huangshan, the other upper echelons were filled with respect and didn't dare show the slightest disrespect. This ordinary youth was the Huangji clan's youngest eternal overlord. Moreover, he wasn't an ordinary eternal overlord, but a peerless genius with half a foot in the third step of Tao validation. Huang Wuji would step into the third step of Tao validation in the future, and become the Huangji clan's second almighty of the third step was just around the corner. Once he successfully advanced, he would transform into a dragon and soar into the 9 heavens. His future was limitless. Huangwu regarded Huang Wuqi with great importance. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to consult Huang Wuqi on this matter. Huang Wuji cupped his hands at Huangwu and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, First Master, Fifth Brother's talent is peerless. He is a true moldable talent. However, his wings aren't fully developed yet. He just lacks time. First Master, if you ask me what Xinghe's ranking will be, I think that if he is second, no one would dare to be first. All the disciples participating in the High God Convention are nothing in front of Xinghe. To put it bluntly, the High God Convention is Xinghe's stage. Even Lu Long from the Hall of Rules, Zhao Nianming from the Hall of Clouds, and Ku Tiancheng from the Tianluo Hall can't compete with him. Huang Wuji's voice was very gentle, but it contained great confidence. This was his absolute confidence in Galaxy of Stars. Huang Wu and Huangshan both smiled. They didn't doubt Huang Wuji's words at all. It had to be said that the Huangji clan was extremely fortunate to have produced 2 great geniuses in their younger generation, Huang Wuji and Galaxy of Stars. They believed that the Huangji clan's power and influence would expand greatly in the next few thousand years. Especially if Huang Wuji could advance to the third step, the Huangji clan would be one of the best among the Tao palaces in the entire host region. There would be very few Tao palaces that could compete with them. Moreover, Xinghe should be able to successfully reach the second step this time. His cultivation base should be able to rise to at least the Master of Destiny. If his luck is good, his cultivation base will soar and reach the Master of Profound Secrets. Huang Wuqi added. Huang Wu, Huangshan, and the other higher-ups were moved. If what Huang Wuji said was true, then Galaxy of Stars was indeed too abnormal. They didn't doubt that Galaxy of Stars could reach the second step with the help of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror and become the Heavens Will Master. However, to soar 2 realms and become the Heavens Will Master was too abnormal. If Galaxy of Stars could really soar 2 realms, then he would be worthy of being the number 1 genius of the Huangji clan. Even Huang Wuji would be overshadowed. Haha. Wuji's analysis is reasonable, but plans can't keep up with changes. It's already very good that galaxy of stars can advance to the heavens will master level. As for the heavens will master, it will depend on his own fortune. We'll just wait and see, Huang Wu said modestly, but his face was full of joy. There was no trace of modesty in his expression. Chapter 2740. Sun Moon Mountain. 5 days later, Zhuowen put away the flames and his gaze fell on the incomparably huge mountain in front of him. The surface of the mountain was bare, but there were all kinds of complicated patterns on the dark surface of the mountain. Zhuowen could not understand these patterns at all. He vaguely felt that these patterns should be some kind of seal mark that even he could not understand. The clone of the Zhurong venomous insect stopped in front of this mountain. Does this mean that the venomous insect of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror is hidden in this mountain? Zhuowen murmured to himself, but his eyes were full of passion as he looked at the mountain in front of him. The venomous insect was right in front of him, as if it was at his fingertips. It also meant that his Pangu sacred body would advance to the 4-star level and complete the final transformation. However, after Zhuowen calmed down, he did not make a move. Instead, he looked at the complicated patterns on the mountain and fell into deep thought. These patterns were too complicated, and the surface of the patterns flashed with red light, giving Zhuowen an extremely dangerous feeling. He knew that it would be inappropriate for him to rashly go up. This is the Sun-Moon Mountain, the origin of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror. It is the core energy source of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror. It is said that the venomous insect of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror is sealed in this origin. An indifferent voice came and attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen looked up and saw a man slowly walking out of the rock wall on the east side of the mountain. The man was about 30 years old and exuded the elegant temperament of a scholar. At this moment, he was looking at Zhuowen with a smile. "You are." Zhuowen looked at the elegant man in front of him in confusion. The elegant man was stunned. Obviously, he did not expect that Zhuowen did not know him. However, he quickly returned to normal and said with a smile, "My name is Huang Ju. I am also ranked 4th among the direct descendants of the Huang Ji family. People usually call me the 4th prince." Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. After hearing Huang Ju's name, he was no longer interested in talking to him. Zhuowen knew what the princes of the Huangji aristocratic family were like. He didn't want to have too much involvement with them. Furthermore, Zhuowen had taught the second prince, Huang Yi, a lesson in front of everyone. The other princes would definitely be unhappy and would think that it was a slap to their prince's face. If he were to meet the other princes, Zhuowen had no intention of speaking nicely to them. Huang Ju also saw Zhuowen's lack of interest in him, so he smiled and said, "I've heard of you. You seem to be called Zhuowen. You're the first one who dares to hit my second brother in public in the Huangji clan. I'm very interested in you." Zhuowen shrugged and did not plan to pay attention to Huang Ju. Instead, he focused on observing the Sun-Moon Mountain in front of him. He was thinking about how to release the ancestral witch-gu worm in the Sun-Moon Mountain. As long as he could come into contact with the ancestral witch-gu worm, Zhuowen was confident that he could refine it for his own use with his Pangu sacred body. However, the Sun-Moon Mountain was currently the biggest obstacle that prevented him from coming into contact with the ancestral witch-gu worm. Huang Ju saw that Zhuowen had no intention of paying attention to him. His eyes were a little gloomy, but he quickly returned to normal. "I can see that you're very interested in this Sun-Moon Yao Mountain. However, I think that you shouldn't even dream of opening it. This Sun-Moon Yao Mountain has been sealed by my Huang Ji family for generations. Even if a creator were to come, he would have to return empty-handed," Huang Ju said indifferently. Zhuowen was shocked. The creator was the first of the 3 realms of the 3rd step of Tao validation. He was considered a true almighty. Even the creator could not do anything about the seal on the Sun-Moon Mountain, so it was naturally impossible for Zhuowen to break it. His Pangu sacred body was too low, let alone his original body. Although Zhuowen had a terrifying trump card like Hou Yi's Divine Arrow, in Zhuowen's opinion, Hou Yi's Divine Arrow could only kill an eternal overlord at most. When it came to a terrifying almighty at the level of the Creator, Zhuowen was not confident that the Hou Yi's Divine Arrow would have an effect on an expert at the level of the Creator. Since even the Creator could not do anything about the Sun-Moon Mountain, Hou Yi's Divine Arrow might not be able to break it open. However, it's not impossible to open the Sun-Moon Mountain. Huang Ju observed Zhuowen's expression. When he saw that Zhuowen was frowning, he knew that the latter was very interested in the ancestral witch-gu worm in the Sun-Moon Mountain. You have a way to open the Sun-Moon Mountain? Zhuowen looked at Huang Ju and asked. Huang Ju looked at Zhuowen strangely and said, You are from the Hall of Penal Law, right? Didn't your law enforcement elder tell you the process and details of the Flourishing God Convention? Zhuowen shook his head and did not explain. In fact, the law enforcement elder had given him a jade slip that recorded the rules and details of the Flourishing God Convention. Because Zhuowen was busy with his seclusion, he had given the jade slip to Chen Fei. After he came out of seclusion, he had forgotten about it. Therefore, even though the Flourishing God Convention had begun, Zhuowen still did not know much about it. Huang Ju didn't mind it too much and continued, Actually, I'm sure you know the rules of the Delicate God Convention. The purpose of this convention is to collect the fragments of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror and use them to improve your cultivation base. You will also have to fight with other cultivators over the fragment. Moreover, the more fragments you collect, the stronger you will be. The Sun-Moon demonic mirror will also rank the cultivators who have collected the most fragment. It's said that when the battle royale of the High God Assembly reaches the end and there is only one person left, he will force all the fragments out of his body and put them on the peak of this mountain. The seal will be released for a quarter of an hour, and the ancestral shaman parasite sealed inside will appear. The ancestral witch-gu worm that appears will emit an extremely pure energy that can be directly imbued into the cultivator and help him to improve his cultivation. Of course, the imbuement of the ancestral witch-gu worm can only last for a quarter of an hour. If it exceeds that time, the ancestral witch-gu worm will go out of control. At that time, if you are not careful, you may lose your life. When he spoke up to here, Huang Ju glanced at Zhuowen with interest and continued, Brother Zhuo, from the looks of it, you seem to have come for the ancestral shaman parasite's blessing, right? The imbuement of the ancestral witch-gu worm is indeed a good thing. However, you must have the corresponding strength. I'm afraid you will not be able to do it. At this point, Huang Ju shook his head. Obviously, he felt that Zhuowen's cultivation was too low. The possibility of him surviving until the end in this endless world was too small. However, he did not underestimate Zhuowen. This person was only a heavenly Dao master, but he was able to defeat Huang Yi, a Dao Yuan master. His strength was somewhat terrifying, and he was not a simple person. In Huang Ju's estimation, Zhuowen's strength was between the peak of Dao Yuan master and the early stage of Han Yuan master. In his opinion, Zhuowen was a companion worth roping in. After all, in his opinion, Zhuowen's development potential was better than the other Dao Yuan masters and Han Yuan masters. A mere heavenly Dao master could easily defeat a Dao Yuan master. If this guy was promoted to Dao Yuan master, he would not be weaker than a late-stage Han Yuan master or even a peak Han Yuan master. Chapter 2741. An invitation from Huang Ju. Zhuowen suddenly realized that if he wanted to get in touch with the ancestral sorcerer's venomous insect, he would have to win first place in the High God Assembly. Zhuowen didn't care about the ranking of the High God Assembly. In his opinion, the participants of the High God Assembly were all from the younger generation. Even the galaxy of stars, who had extraordinary talents, was nothing in Zhuowen's eyes. This was because he knew that it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill the galaxy of stars. After all, his Panger's sacred body had already reached the peak of the 3-star level. He could easily defeat any ordinary master of destiny. Thank you very much. Zhuowen cupped his hands toward Huang Ju. He didn't want to have any more contact with Huang Ju and was about to leave. However, Huang Ju obviously didn't want to let Zhuowen leave just like that. He blocked Zhuowen's path. Zhuowen frowned and looked at Huang Ju, who was blocking his path, and said coldly, "Brother Huang Ju, what is the meaning of this?" Huang Ju smiled and didn't mind Zhuowen's rude tone. He said with a faint smile, "Brother Zhuo, you don't have to be so wary of me. To be honest, we don't have any conflicts of interest. We can cooperate." Zhuowen sneered and said sarcastically, "Huang Yi is your second brother. I crippled his right hand in front of everyone. Don't you have any grudges?" Huang Ju smiled disdainfully and said, "Huang Yi is only my second brother in name. He's actually just a good-for-nothing with poor talent. Most of his cultivation was boosted by divine herbs. It's basically impossible for him to advance to a higher realm in the future. In terms of status, he is far inferior to me. Moreover, among the 5 of us, other than the eldest heir, Huang Wuqi, who is the first master's son, the other 4 are only the first master's adopted sons and are not related by blood. Huang Yi's talent isn't good enough. Sooner or later, he will step down from his position as heir. I don't even care about this kind of trash, and I won't offend a genius like you for this kind of trash." When Huang Ju said that Huang Yi was trash, her voice was full of righteousness, without the slightest bit of guilt. Of course, Zhuowen was not worried about this. Regardless of whether the relationship between Huang Ju and Huang Ju was really good, he did not intend to cooperate with Huang Ju. He could see that Huang Ju was very scheming. If he cooperated with such a person, it would be easy to fall into his hands. Of course, with Zhuowen's strength, no matter how scheming Huang Ju was, it wouldn't affect Zhuowen much. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks were just paper tigers. "Brother Huang Ju, I'm used to being alone. I'm not used to working with others, so I'll take my leave now. See you later." Zhuowen was too lazy to waste his breath on Huang Ju, so he cupped his fists and disappeared like a gust of wind. Huang Ju was stunned on the spot, and his face suddenly turned green and white. In the end, he calmed down, but deep in his eyes there was a strong killing intent. "Ungrateful bastard, if I see you again, I'll make you regret your rude behavior this time." Huang Ju's eyes were cold, and he didn't deliberately chase after Zhuowen. The High God Conference would last for a whole year, and it had just begun. Most of the cultivators would not choose to fight to the death. Instead, they would tacitly agree to collect the demonic mirror fragments to increase their cultivation. In the middle and later stages of the High God Conference, the conflicts between the cultivators would become more and more intense due to the lack of demonic mirror fragments. At that time, the battles between the cultivators would become extremely fierce. At that time, the real battle royale would begin. Every cultivator would want to kill the others and obtain the energy of the demonic mirror fragments from them to become stronger. But now, the process of collecting the demonic mirror fragments was relatively peaceful. After all, people like the galaxy of stars, who killed without caring about the occasion and didn't care about the unspoken rules, were in the minority. Zhuowen kept moving forward. This time, he used the power of the Pangu banner to spread his divine sense to a distance of 10,000 feet. He went deep into the ground and soon found more than 10 demonic mirror fragments under his feet. If other cultivators knew that Zhuowen's divine sense could extend to a distance of 10,000 feet, they would definitely vomit blood and cry out that it was unfair. Due to a strange force in the infinite world that could block divine sense, most cultivators could only extend their divine sense to a distance of a dozen meters. Some were even worse and could only extend their divine sense to a distance of a few meters. It was already very impressive to be able to extend their divine sense to a distance of 10 meters. Perhaps no one in the infinite world could extend their divine sense to a distance of 10,000 feet like Zhuowen. Most of the demonic mirror fragments were buried 10 meters below the ground or even 100 meters deep. Most cultivators' divine sense couldn't reach that deep. Therefore, many cultivators first guessed a place and then began to dig a hole. As they continued to dig, their divine sense could get closer to the demonic mirror fragments underground. Cultivators who were lucky would be able to find some demonic mirror fragments in one go. As for those who were unlucky, they might not be able to find a single demonic mirror fragment even after a few days of hard work. However, Zhuowen didn't need to do that. His divine sense had a range of 10,000 feet. Basically, wherever he flew past, he could clearly detect whether there were any demonic mirror fragments in the depths of the ground. He didn't need to waste time digging to confirm. Soon, Zhuowen found another piece of ground. After digging a few hundred meters into the ground, he found more than 70 demon mirror fragments. The energy of the demonic mirror fragments was very easy to absorb. Zhuowen didn't even need to refine them. He only needed to hold the fragments, and he could continuously transfer the energy from the fragments into his body and convert it into energy in his body. On average, Zhuowen only needed 3 breaths of time to absorb each fragment. Zhuowen's speed of finding the demonic mirror fragments was really fast. On average, he could find hundreds to thousands of fragments in a day. He absorbed all the energy in these fragments. Zhuowen's cultivation level was also steadily increasing. However, Zhuowen felt helpless because his physique was too special. In the past half a month, he had collected nearly 10,000 demonic mirror fragments and absorbed all of them. He could clearly feel that his cultivation level had indeed increased. However, he realized that he was still a long way from breaking through to the Daoyuan Master Realm. If it were other cultivators, they would have broken through to the Daoyuan Master Realm or even reached the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm after absorbing so much energy from the demonic mirror fragments. However, Zhuowen still hadn't reached the threshold of the Daoyuan Master Realm. I'm really a bottomless pit. The amount of resources I need to advance to the Daoyuan Master Realm is 1,000 times more than other cultivators, Zhuowen muttered to himself in a self-deprecating manner. Just as Zhuowen was lamenting about his strange physique, he suddenly stopped and landed on the ground. The world Zhuowen was in was filled with endless rock. Apart from rocks, there was nothing else in this world. It was a real world of rocks. Just now, he had casually scanned the ground beneath his feet and realized that this underground world was unusual. Chapter 2742. A huge discovery. The ground under his feet was very deep. Zhuowen spent quite some time and only found sporadic demon mirror fragments. However, Zhuowen knew that this underground was not simple. It was purely a feeling. Moreover, his divine sense had not reached its limit, so Zhuowen continued to push his divine sense deeper. Finally, at a depth of nearly 10,000 feet below his feet, which was the limit of Zhuowen's divine sense, he saw a scene that shocked him. In his divine sense, there were piles of demon mirror fragments at a depth of 10,000 feet below the ground. Just on the surface that Zhuowen scanned, there were close to 10,000 demon mirror fragments. There were even more demon mirror fragments in places that his divine sense could not reach. If it was not for the fact that Zhuowen's divine sense was not long enough, he believed that he could scan more demon mirror fragments. There was no doubt that there was a huge reserve of demon mirror fragments at a depth of 10,000 feet below his feet. He estimated that there were at least 50,000 demon mirror fragments or even more. If he could obtain so many demon mirror fragments, Zhuowen knew that his original body might be able to advance to Daoyuan Master. I have to dig out all of these demon mirror fragments. Zhuowen's eyes were burning with passion as he began to dig the ground. As this was a world of rocks, even the ground was covered with rock. Moreover, these rocks were not ordinary rock. Even if Zhuowen used the heavenly Tao's divine power to condense a shovel, he had to use all his strength to dig a few feet into the ground under his feet. With Zhuowen's current digging speed, It would take at least 3 months or even longer to dig to a depth of 10,000 feet below the ground. It was precisely because this world of rocks was different from the ground of other worlds that there were very few cultivators who searched for and dug out demon mirror fragments in this world. Even if there were cultivators who passed by, they would take a detour and leave when they realized that the ground of this world of rocks was so difficult to dig out. In particular, when some cultivators saw that Zhuowen was digging alone there seriously, they would basically secretly laugh at him and leave as a joke. Zhuowen paid no attention to the cultivators who passed by and mocked him. Time flew by and 2 months went by in the blink of an eye. Zhuowen had already dug a distance of over 900 zhang. As for the cultivators in the infinite worlds, most of them had more or less gained something. Some lucky cultivators had obtained a considerable amount of demon mirror fragments. After absorbing their energy, their cultivation had improved greatly and made a breakthrough. Among them, the most famous was the Galaxy of Stars. It was said that the Galaxy of Stars had already become a half-step Destiny Master and was extremely close to becoming a Destiny Master. Of course, from the moment the Galaxy of Stars entered this infinite world, they started a massacre. The Galaxy of Stars did not spare any of the cultivators they encountered along the way and killed them all. Therefore, most of the eliminated cultivators in the square outside the Sun-Moon demonic mirror were basically thanks to the Galaxy of Stars. It was also because of this that the Galaxy of Stars was infamous in the infinite world. Most cultivators were unwilling to encounter the Galaxy of Stars. Even if some cultivators accidentally encountered the Galaxy of Stars, the first thing they did was immediately run for their lives. Before the Galaxy of Stars could get close, those cultivators had already fled without a trace. In addition to the Galaxy of Stars, Zhao Nianming of the Yunyan Hall, Ku Tianlong of the Tianluo Hall, and Lu Long of the Law Hall had also performed very fiercely. It was said that these 3 people had also gained a lot and had all become half-step Destiny Masters. However, although these 3 people's cultivation levels were the same as the Galaxy of Stars, none of them dared to take the initiative to provoke the Galaxy of Stars. The Galaxy of Stars was a true genius. When he was at the peak of Primordial Chaos Master, he had once defeated a Destiny Master. Now that he had become a half-step Destiny Master, his strength must be even more terrifying. The combat strength of the Galaxy of Stars could not be measured by cultivation levels. Zhao Nianming, Ku Tianlong, and Lu Long were considered geniuses. However, even if they had become half-step Destiny Masters, they would only have a 50% chance of defeating an ordinary Destiny Master. They simply could not reach the level of the Galaxy of Stars. Therefore, even if their cultivation levels were the same as the Galaxy of Stars, none of them were willing to face the Galaxy of Stars. Huang Ju's talent was also terrifying, but this guy was too low-key. Basically, he rarely heard any sensational news. However, he still could not be underestimated. Second Prince, isn't that the Zhuowen you've been talking about? This guy is actually digging in this rock world. Is this guy an idiot? A group of people swept over from the rock world. Among them, a young woman in a red dress saw the figure of Zhuowen who was digging up the demonic mirror fragments and recognized Zhuowen. In front of this group of people was the extremely handsome Huang Yi. At this moment, Huang Yi followed the woman's finger and saw Zhuowen's back. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness and malevolence. I've traveled far and wide to no avail. I was just about to look for that bastard. I didn't expect to meet this bastard like this. Huang Yi sneered. There must be something wrong with this guy's head. The ground of this rocky world is the hardest in the infinite worlds. Even a peak cultivator like Lord Primordial would have a hard time digging it out. Yet, this guy is still digging, and digging so deep. The woman in the red dress looked at Zhuowen, who was still digging in the distance, as if she was looking at an idiot. She knew very well how hard the ground of this rock world was. If she were to dig, it would take her 4 to 5 months to dig a 10,000 feet deep hole. Thinking that this guy spent so much time digging such a big hole, not only did the woman in the red dress find it unbelievable, but Huang Yi and the others also found it funny. There's indeed something wrong with this bastard's brain. Let's see just how much of an idiot this bastard is. Huang Yi was not in a hurry to find trouble with Zhuowen. Instead, he stopped not far away and looked down at Zhuowen with his arms crossed in front of his chest. Zhuowen had already seen Huang Yi and the group of people. He sneered in his heart but did not pay attention to this group of clowns. Huang Yi brought a group of 8 people. The strongest among them should be an early-stage Hunyuan master, while the rest were peak Daoyuan masters. Such a lineup could be said to be magnificent and powerful. Ordinary cultivators would not dare to provoke them. However, in Zhuowen's eyes, they were simply clowns. Zhuowen did not bother to pay attention to these people. His heart was burning because he was about to dig 10,000 feet into the ground. Ding! Suddenly, there was a crisp sound. Then, Zhuowen wiped off the loose soil under his feet and a surge of energy rushed towards him. Zhuowen was too familiar with this energy. It was the energy aura of the demon mirror fragments. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and began to collect the demon mirror fragments crazily. Those are demon mirror fragments? How can there be so many demon mirror fragments? Chapter 2743. Snatched by force, Second Prince. There are so many demonic mirror fragments 1,000 zhang underground. I estimate that there are at least tens of thousands of them. With so many demonic mirror fragments, we can all cultivate to the peak of Hunyuan Master if we divide them evenly. The woman in red was the first to come back to her senses. Her beautiful eyes were filled with passion and greed as she quickly said to Huang Yi. She was still sober and knew that the person in charge was Huang Yi. Naturally, she could not be the first to take action. She should wait for Huang Yi's order. Not only the woman in red, but the rest of the people around Huang Yi were also looking at Huang Yi. Clearly, they could not wait any longer. Haha, this bastard is really lucky. After digging for a few months like an idiot, he really dug out a treasure. Let's go. Don't attack first. Let's collect the demonic mirror fragments first. Huang Yi was wise. He did not plan to deal with Zhuowen directly. Instead, he arranged for the others to collect the demonic mirror fragments first. The number of demonic mirror fragments that Zhuowen had dug out was too shocking. Even if all of them worked together, it would still take them half a day. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Huang Yi finished speaking, the others rushed out like a gust of wind and frantically collected the demonic mirror fragments in the huge pit. Huang Yi also joined the team in a frenzy. Zhuowen only glanced at Huang Yi's group and ignored them. Instead, he focused on collecting the fragment. The number of demonic mirror fragments that he had dug out was too shocking. He estimated that there were more than 100,000 of them. He just wanted to collect them as soon as possible. After all, the energy that erupted from so many demonic mirror fragments was very terrifying. It would definitely attract the attention of many cultivators in the surrounding world. If too many cultivators came, he would not be able to stop them all by himself. Since Huang Yi and the others were in the same group, Zhuowen did not feel bad about letting them collect a part of the demonic mirror fragment. He knew that after he was done collecting, he would find Huang Yi and the others to settle the score. They would not be able to escape. The group had a tacit understanding. They did not interfere with each other and collected the fragments quickly. Of course, Zhuowen was the fastest. Zhuowen's doppelganger was Devour. With Devour's innate devouring power, Huang Yi and the others could not collect the fragments in time. 4 hours later, the demonic mirror fragments in the huge pit were all collected into Zhuowen's great world. Zhuowen made a rough estimation and discovered that he had obtained a total of over 80,000 demon mirror fragments this time. Huang Yi and the rest should have collected close to 20,000 demon mirror fragments in total. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, black shadows to the great Yan's world. Clearly, some of the cultivators near the rock world were attracted by the demon mirror fragments in the giant pit. Huang R Huang studio of R to studio to studio R studio of the way studio of is R studio is R studio is. By Huang he walked forward and looked at Zhuo Wen coldly. Hand over all the demonic mirror fragments you have. Then, kneel on the ground and apologize to me. If you do that, I can consider sparing your worthless life and making you my lackey. You can try if you want me to apologize. If you can defeat me, I will apologize to you and be your lackey, Zhuo Wen said calmly. Huang Yi's eyes flickered. He did not attack but took a few steps back. He had exchanged blows with Zhuo Wen in the square before, and his right hand had been crippled by this fellow. He knew that if he attacked, he would be no match for this guy. He might even end up worse than before. How dare you be so arrogant when you are just the master of the heavenly law? I will teach you a lesson on behalf of the second prince. A man who was as thin as a bamboo pole behind Huang Yi sneered. He glanced at Zhuo Wen with disdain before shooting out like a cannonball towards Zhuo Wen. Zhuo Wen looked at him strangely. It seemed like this man had not heard of the feud between him and Huang Yi. After all, this man's cultivation was only at the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm. Although he was stronger than Huang Yi, there was a limit to his strength. If this skinny man knew about the fight between Zhuo Wen and Huang Yi, he would not have rushed forward alone. Zhuo Wen simply did not care about such a clown. His right fist shot out and smashed into the man's arm. Immediately, the man miserably shrieked as a cluster of bloody mist erupted from his arm. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. Zhuo Wen took a step forward. As the man flew backward, he punched out again and hit the man's chest. A powerful force exploded and the man's chest caved in. Then, the man arched his body and a cloud of blood exploded from his back. In the end, the man screamed in pain and exploded into pieces. He was dead. Except for Huang Yi, everyone else was stunned. Obviously, they did not expect a mere heavenly Dao master to be so powerful that he could kill the skinny man at the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm with a single punch. Huang Yi had wanted them to join forces because he knew Zhuo Wen's strength was not simple. However, the skinny man was too impatient. He attacked before Huang Yi could say anything. By the time Huang Yi wanted to remind them, Zhuo Wen had already killed the skinny man. Everyone, be careful. This man is not simple. Let's kill him together and take the demon mirror fragment from him, Huang Yi quickly reminded them. Even without Huang Yi's reminder, the others had already joined forces and flew toward Zhuo Wen after seeing the skinny man's tragic end. At the same time, before they arrived, various powerful attacks had already landed on Zhuo Wen's body. These were all experts at the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm. There was even an expert at the early stage of the Hunyuan Master Realm. Their combined attack was extremely terrifying. Even the experts at the intermediate and advanced stage of the Hunyuan Master Realm did not dare to take such a terrifying attack head-on. Although Zhuo Wen was extraordinary in their opinion, he was just a heavenly Dao master. Under such a joint attack, he would definitely die. Bang! 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 Suddenly, there was a crisp sound from the huge light ball in front of them. Immediately, the huge energy light ball was destroyed in an instant. A figure walked out slowly like a god or a demon. The attack of more than 10 of you is so weak. It's too trashy. Zhuo Wen, who was like a god or a demon, walked out slowly and looked down at Huang Yi and the others who were already in a daze. Zhuo Wen didn't speak any further. He took a step forward and shot out like an arrow that had left the bow, and he pierced through this group of people with extreme speed. The first person he came to was the lady in the red dress who had mocked him earlier. He threw out a punch that looked ordinary. However, the lady in the red dress retreated quickly as if she was avoiding the god of plague. Unfortunately, she was locked in place by Zhuo Wen's killing intent and it was useless for her to retreat. When she had nowhere else to retreat to, she gritted her teeth and took out a red brocade. It transformed into a red snake and suddenly shot out to meet Zhuowen. However, it was a pity that Zhuowen merely grabbed it and gently twisted it. The red brocade was casually torn apart by Zhuowen. The lady in the red dress screamed as she felt the fear of death. Chapter 2744. The Spreading News Boom. After Zhuowen tore apart the red brocade, he punched the woman in the red dress in between her eyebrows. Her screams came to an abrupt end. Zhuowen muttered to himself as he flew towards another cultivator beside him. This cultivator also took out his natal divine artifact. Unfortunately, they were just paper tigers under the power of the Pangu's sacred body. His natal divine weapon was shattered with one punch. The remaining force of the punch did not diminish and landed on the cultivator's chest. Immediately, the cultivator was beaten into a bloody mist and couldn't be more dead. Zhuowen's voice rang in the ears of Huang Yi and the others like a soul-reaping messenger from hell. They could not help but tremble in fear. Especially when they saw that their besiegement was useless against Zhuowen and that he was killing their cultivators as if they were chickens, they were truly terrified from the bottom of their hearts. Bang! 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 3, 4, 8 Zhuowen threw out 8 punches in a row and killed 8 people in one fell swoop. The remaining 5 or 6 people were all stunned. Their bodies trembled and they quickly retreated. Lu Qi, go! Hold this person back. Huang Yi was terrified. He quickly ordered his personal guard beside him and kept retreating. There were 4 people beside Huang Yi. They all huddled together and did not dare to get close to Zhuowen. Lu Qi was Huang Yi's personal guard. Lu Qi had already attacked Zhuowen when they were in the square. If it were not for the law enforcement patriarch's timely intervention, Zhuowen would have killed Lu Qi in the square. Lu Qi's expression was solemn. From Zhuowen's performance just now, he knew that this boy's strength was above his. However, he was very confident. He knew that the white-clothed young man in front of him was indeed powerful, but there was a limit to his strength. He had no problem holding this young man back for a while. Lu Qi waved his sleeve and took out a hook that looked like a crescent moon. The end of the hook was connected to a black chain. Clang! Clang! Lu Qi swung the hook with all his might. The hook flew out along with the chain like a long dragon. It was extremely fast as it meandered through the air. Not long after, the hook arrived in front of Zhuowen. Before Zhuowen could react, the hook suddenly sped up, bypassed Zhuowen, and went straight for the back of Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen stood in the same spot, not moving at all, as if he had not reacted at all. The corners of Lu Qi's mouth curled up into a grin. He knew that if this Zhuowen couldn't react in time, then he would definitely die. His natal divine artifact directly targeted a cultivator's divine soul. Once the back of the head was pierced, the divine soul would immediately receive a fatal blow and collapse. In Lu Qi's opinion, even a peak Hunyuan master would die if he didn't defend against his hook and allowed it to pierce into the back of his head. This bastard is dead for sure. When Huang Yi saw this scene from a short distance away, the corners of his mouth heaved a sigh of relief, and he revealed a rather happy expression and a trace of pleasure from taking revenge. Clang! The sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out. Immediately after, Lu Qi was shocked to find that the moment his natal divine artifact hit the back of Zhuowen's head, not only did it not pierce through, but it was also bounced off. It was as if the back of Zhuowen's head wasn't made of flesh and blood, but was forged from the hardest iron and stone. How is this possible? Lu Qi screamed and immediately tried to withdraw the hook. Unfortunately, Zhuowen had already made his move. As soon as he grasped the chain connected to the end of the hook, he exerted force with his palm, and the chain on the hook collapsed into powder. Zhuowen grabbed the hook and fiercely threw it out. His strength was extremely great, and wherever the hook passed, terrifying sparks would explode. This was a phenomenon caused by the intense friction with the air. The hook was too fast. Lu Qi had only turned around, but before he could even begin to run, The hook had already sunk into the back of his head. Lu Qi screamed and fell to the ground, motionless. Run! The moment Lu Qi was killed, Huang Yi realized that something was wrong. He had underestimated Zhuowen's strength. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately took out an escape talisman, crushed it, and disappeared on the spot. The 4 cultivators also crushed the escape talismans they carried with them and fled without hesitation. Unfortunately, Zhuowen naturally wouldn't let the 4 of them succeed. The moment the 4 of them crushed their escape talismans, Zhuowen used the space-time ability, Waning Sun above the sea. In an instant, with Zhuowen as the center, the space-time within a range of 10,000 feet in all directions was locked. The 4 cultivators who were a beat slower were immediately locked by the space-time ability. Their bodies froze and their movements slowed down. When they finally adapted to the space-time lock of the waning sun above the sea, monstrous waves rose from the endless space-time ocean below, instantly drowning the 4 cultivators. After the 4 cultivators let out a miserable scream, there was no more sound. Huang Yi, do you think you can escape? Zhuowen stopped using the space-time ability and took out the space-time roulette. Like a bolt of lightning, he instantly disappeared on the spot and chased after Huang Yi. The battle on Zhuowen's side was extremely short. When the battle ended and Zhuowen took out the space-time roulette and left, the cultivators who heard the news arrived above the huge pit. When they found the huge pit that was extremely deep and still had the aura of the demon mirror fragments, they all thought that there must be a lot of demon mirror fragments before the huge pit. The crowd was in an uproar. At the same time, some of the cultivators who passed by before and saw Zhuowen made the connection. They knew that the cultivator who had obtained such a great advantage must be the one they mocked. Now that they thought about it, these cultivators who had mocked Zhuowen were filled with regret. They didn't expect that there would be such a huge amount of demon mirror fragments underground. We must find this person. I remember that this person is only the Heavenly Tao Master. How can he be qualified to have so many demon mirror fragments with such a low cultivation level? We must kill him and take the demon mirror fragments. Spread the news. I have this person's image, so I can easily recognize him. Let's kill him together and split the demon mirror fragments equally. Therefore, more and more cultivators found out that a cultivator who was only the Heavenly Tao Master was very lucky to have dug a huge pit with at least 100,000 demon mirror fragments. The cultivators in the entire endless world began to spontaneously search for the lucky cultivator, all wanting to take advantage of him. If the person who had obtained such a terrifying number of demon mirror fragments was a terrifying existence like the galaxy of stars, no one would have any ideas about it. Chapter 2745.K. E. Tianqing, Brother Zhuo actually obtained so many demon mirror fragments. Now that they've been exposed, I'm afraid it's not a good thing. He'll be hated by everyone in this place. In a forest world, a young man looked at the communication jade talisman in his hand with a worried expression. This person was Chun Fa from the Hall of Criminal Law. The message was sent by a few of his good friends. With the help of the communication between friends, the message spread very quickly. Interesting. Isn't this the Zhuowen who beat up second brother in the square last time? This guy's strength is weak, but his luck is heaven-defying. He actually dug out so many demon mirror fragments. However, these demon mirror fragments will soon be mine. In the dark cloud world, the galaxy of stars put away the communication jade talisman and licked his lips with a bloodthirsty look in his eyes. Those who knew the galaxy of stars knew that this was a sign that the galaxy of stars had found a new prey. Cultivators who were targeted by the galaxy of stars did not have a good ending. This Zhuowen is quite lucky. It seems that I'll have to find this guy again. In a waterfall, the corners of Huang Ju's mouth curled up slightly. There were 5 cultivators behind him. These 5 cultivators were all primordial chaos masters. The weakest one was at the early stage of primordial chaos master, while the strongest one was already at the peak of primordial chaos master. Huang Ju had already become a half-step destiny master. In addition, many cultivators had joined the ranks of searching for Zhuo. Even the extremely famous Yunyan Hall's Zhao Nianming, Tianluo Hall's Kutiancheng, and the Hall of Rules Lu Long were the same. In the face of the temptation of 100,000 demon mirror fragments, almost no cultivator could resist. The protagonist of this incident, Zhuo, did not know that he was wanted by everyone and had become a delicious prey in everyone's eyes. At this moment, he was activating the space-time roulette. Its speed was extremely fast, almost surpassing the speed of light. Soon, he saw the back of Huang Yi, who was escaping with the help of the escape talisman. Huang Yi noticed Zhuo, who flashed over explosively from behind as well, and he was terrified out of his wits, causing him to madly withdraw another escape talisman before crushing it with the intention of speeding up. Unfortunately, no matter how fast Huang Yi's escape talisman was, it was not faster than the speed of the empty roulette. Not long after, Zhuo caught up with Huang Yi. Zhuo impolitely grabbed Huang Yi by the collar and lifted him in front of him. Zhuo, I'm the second son of the Huangji clan. Do you dare to kill me? Huang Yi shouted himself hoarse. However, Huang Yi's trembling body betrayed him. Idiot! Zhuo merely uttered these two words as he pointed his sword finger at Huang Yi's glabella. Huang Yi's eyes were wide open as he breathed his last breath. His spiritual soul dissipated, and he could not be more dead. After killing Huang Yi, Zhuo took out Huang Yi's storage ring and retrieved all the demon mirror fragments from it. Although in the world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, only a trace of the primordial spirit had entered it, the Sun-Moon demonic mirror was extremely powerful. The simulation was almost the same as the real world. The usage and retrieval of the spiritual ring were exactly the same as the outside world. Zhuo was looking forward to it. He knew that with the 100,000 demon mirror fragments, it would not be a problem for his original body to advance to the Daoyuan Master Realm. I need to find a place to cultivate in seclusion, Zhuo muttered. When he was about to leave the place, his eyes turned cold. Immediately, a burst of seven-colored energy burst out from the ground under his feet. It fell like rain and instantly enveloped Zhuo. Zhuo's eyes were cold. The moment he put away the space-time roulette, he left the place. When he appeared 1,000 meters away, he happened to see the seven-colored energy explode where Zhuo had been. The terrifying energy was constantly compressed and burst. If an ordinary Hunyuan master was not careful, he would be seriously injured even if he did not die. You didn't die. Your reaction is not bad. A soft sound of surprise was heard. Immediately, a figure broke out from the ground below and floated in the air. He looked at Zhuo in surprise. This person was quite handsome. He had a standard square face and a dignified temperament. After this person broke out of the ground, another 3 figures followed closely behind him, all of them looking at Zhuo with malicious intentions. Senior Brother Ku, we are lucky to meet this guy. As long as we kill this guy, we can get 100,000 demon mirror fragments. A round-faced cultivator behind the square-faced man said excitedly. Zhuo narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the news that he had obtained 100,000 demon mirror fragments had spread so quickly. This made Zhuo a little speechless. Originally, he thought that it would take some time for the news to spread. Now, the news had spread as soon as he had obtained 100,000 demon mirror fragments. It seemed that he would inevitably become the target of public criticism. The 4 people in front of him were obviously here for the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Wealth moved people's hearts. I am Ku Tiancheng of the Tianluo Hall. I don't want to know your name. Now, hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragments and I will not kill you. I will let you continue to gain experience in this infinite world. The square-faced man put his hands behind his back and looked at Zhuo proudly. In his eyes, Zhuo was just a worthless heavenly Tao master. It was completely lucky for him to obtain 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Now that he, Kutiancheng, was a famous genius in the Huangji family, it was natural for him to take the 100,000 demon mirror fragments from the hands of the heavenly Tao Master. Senior Brother Ku is indeed benevolent. He actually plans to let this ant go. If it were me, I wouldn't even waste my breath. I would kill this kid and take away the 100,000 demon mirror fragments from this ant. How can we compare to Senior Brother Ku? He is a magnanimous person. We can't compare to him. Kid, if you know what's good for you, quickly hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The three cultivators behind Kutiancheng spoke one after another. Their words could be said to be full of admiration for Kutiancheng. This made Kutiancheng feel extremely comfortable as his gaze landed on Zhuowen. What if I don't give it to you? Zhuowen spoke slowly. Immediately, the three cultivators who were talking one after another were stunned. The surroundings also became unbearably silent. Then you are courting death. Senior Brother Ku, you don't even need to deal with this kind of ant. I will deal with it for you. The round-faced cultivator was the first to react. Without waiting for the other two cultivators to react, he flew out alone and used a killing move. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Zhuowen with a single move. The remaining two cultivators had looks of regret on their faces. They hated themselves for being too slow and allowing the round-faced cultivator to beat them to it. Zhuowen stretched out his right hand and grabbed the round-faced cultivator's fist. Then, he twisted it fiercely. The round-faced cultivator let out a miserable scream as his right arm was twisted. Chapter 2746. Desperate, the surroundings were dead silent. The smiles on the faces of Kutiancheng and the two cultivators behind him froze. What's going on? The heavenly Tao Master killed Yuan Biao in one move? How can he be so strong? The two cultivators looked at each other and saw fear and disbelief in each other's eyes. Kutiancheng's eyes darkened. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "It seems that you have hidden your strength well. Although your cultivation is not high, your strength is actually so strong. It seems that you didn't get the 100,000 demon mirror fragments by luck. However, you met me today. If you don't want to be eliminated now, hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragment. I'll spare your life and let you go." Kutiancheng's tone was domineering and unquestionable. Although Zhuowen's display of strength had shocked him, in his opinion, the gap between him and this kid was still too big. If this kid fought against him, he would definitely lose. Therefore, he felt that the wisest choice was for this kid to hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragments to save his life. Zhuowen glanced at Kutiancheng indifferently and said, "I've said it before. These 100,000 demon mirror fragments are mine. Why should I give them to you? Whether it's that person or you, what right do you have to ask for them in front of me? And what obligation do I have to hand them over to you?" Hearing this, Kutiancheng's face darkened. "You really don't know what's good for you. Do you really think you're invincible after killing Yuan Biao? Yes, Senior Brother Ku is now a half-step heavenly fate master. You're just an ant in front of him. He didn't kill you and only asked you to hand over the demon mirror fragment. That's already the greatest mercy. How dare you refuse?" The two cultivators behind Kutiancheng continued to mock Zhuowen. Moreover, the two of them hinted that Kutiancheng should kill Zhuowen and snatch the demon mirror fragments. Kutiancheng pressed his right hand down, and the two of them immediately fell silent. "Looks like you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Kutiancheng's eyes were cold as he looked at Zhuowen. He no longer concealed the killing intent in his eyes. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out from Kutiancheng's body, forming a terrifying energy storm behind him. From afar, this energy storm looked like a ferocious head that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It looked down as if it wanted to swallow the mountains and rivers. The two cultivators behind Kutiancheng had already distanced themselves from him. Both of them were only Daoyuan masters. The reason why they could follow Ku-Tianqing was that they were disciples of Tianluohal and could be considered as Ku-Tianqing's junior brothers. When Ku-Tianqing met the two of them in the Endless World, he naturally brought them along on the account that they were from the same sect. Otherwise, given Ku-Tianqing's character, it was impossible for him to bring two burdens with him. Zhuowen stood quietly on the spot, his eyes as calm as an ancient well. Ku-Tianqing was indeed a genius, although he was only a half-step destiny master. However, the aura he emitted was extremely vast and terrifying. It was no weaker than that of an ordinary destiny master. Zhuowen knew that Ku-Tianqing could fight with an ordinary destiny master based on the aura that Ku-Tianqing was displaying. However, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. His Pangu sacred body was only at the peak of the 3-star level. However, the power of the Pangu sacred body was much stronger than that of an ordinary cultivator. According to Zhuowen's estimation, the strength of the 3-star Pangu sacred body was comparable to that of Master Xuanji. It was much stronger than that of a destiny master, let alone Ku-Tianqing, who was only a half-step destiny master. "Are you sure you want to fight?" Zhuowen asked faintly. Ku-Tianqing laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "Why shouldn't I fight? Because if you fight, I'm afraid you'll regret it. At that time, you'll even lose your life. I'm just reminding you out of kindness so that you won't regret it," Zhuowen said carelessly. This guy really has a problem with his brain. Senior brother Ku can completely destroy this little bastard with one move. This little bastard still dares to be so arrogant. The two cultivators standing behind Ku-Tianqing in the distance sneered. Their voices were very loud and had no intention of hiding it. Ku-Tianqing did not speak anymore. He took a step forward and shot out like an arrow toward Zhuowen. In Ku-Tianqing's eyes, Zhuowen was already a dead man. There was no need for him to waste his breath on a dead man. Boom! Zhuowen punched out and collided with Ku-Tianqing's fist. Immediately, the crisp sound of bones cracking was heard. Ku-Tianqing's fist shattered directly. Even his entire arm was bent and twisted. Ku-Tianqing's reaction was very fast. The moment the fist shattered, he immediately retreated and dodged Zhuowen's next sure-kill punch. The fight between Zhuowen and Ku-Tianqing was very short. It was only one move, but the outcome was obvious. Zhuowen was still standing in the same place. His feet had not moved at all. On the other hand, Ku-Tianqing was in an extremely sorry state. Not only was his right hand bent, but he had also suffered serious internal injuries. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and his eyes were in a trance. The two cultivators who were talking in the distance were stunned and speechless when they saw the two people who had separated in the blink of an eye. Especially when they saw that Ku-Tianqing was actually crippled in one move, the shock in their hearts reached an extreme level. "Who the hell are you?" Ku-Tianqing hurriedly took a few steps back again and looked at the white-clothed young man in front of him in shock. He felt more deeply than the two people who were watching the fight in the distance. The moment his fist collided with Zhuowen's, he felt a force that even he was afraid of erupting from his opponent's fist. At that moment, he felt the threat of death. It was precisely because he felt the threat of death that Ku-Tianqing immediately retreated and was lucky enough to avoid Zhuowen's next fatal punch. Zhuowen did not answer Ku-Tianqing's question. Instead, he took a step forward and turned into an afterimage as he rushed toward Ku-Tianqing. Ku-Tianqing's pupils shrank. His eyes flickered, but he did not escape immediately. Instead, he roared and the aura in his body soared dozens of times in an instant. His aura was so vast that it was as if it could swallow the sun and the moon. Even Zhuowen was a little moved. "He's burning his blood essence?" Zhuowen was surprised. He quickly guessed Ku-Tianqing's actions. Bang! Ku-Tianqing stomped on the ground, causing the entire ground to shake violently as if there was an earthquake. Ku-Tianqing was like a furious lion as he rushed toward Zhuowen recklessly. Boom! 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 In an instant, Zhuowen and Ku Tiancheng bombarded each other. Their fists were slanting on each other's body as if their lives depended on it. It had to be said that Ku Tiancheng's strength and speed had increased greatly after burning his blood essence. Even Zhuowen could not catch Ku Tiancheng's movements sometimes, so he was hit in the vital parts of his body by Ku Tiancheng's fists. Fortunately, Zhuowen's Pangu sacred body was too hard. Although Ku Tiancheng's attacks were powerful, they only caused minor injuries when they hit the Pangu sacred body. Chapter 2747. Chapter 2. Ku Tiancheng and Zhuowen were courting death by fighting each other head-on. Zhuowen knew that the reason why Ku Tiancheng was still attacking was that he was holding on to the last breath in his body. If he released his last breath, Ku Tiancheng would immediately lose all his fighting strength and die from serious injuries. Zhuowen admired Ku Tiancheng's stubbornness. Although Ku Tiancheng was here to snatch his things, Zhuowen admired his stubbornness. Ku Tiancheng, let me send you on your last journey. Zhuowen's faint voice was heard. Then, he clenched his right hand into a fist, and the sound of bamboo joints exploding was heard. Zhuowen's right hand suddenly punched out. The power of this punch was too terrifying. While it was still in the air, there were continuous sounds of thunder. At the same time, wherever the fist passed, there were many kinds of strange phenomena, such as storms, thunderbolts, flames, etc. It was terrifying and harmful. Puff! Ku Tiancheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, but there was not much fear in his eyes. Instead, they were full of fighting spirit. Knowing that he was no match for Zhuowen in a head-on fight, he still punched out at Zhuowen. Puff! Ku Tiancheng's arm exploded into a bloody foam. Then, the power was too terrifying. It spread from Ku Tiancheng's arm to his whole body. Finally, Ku Tiancheng exploded into a bloody fog. His body and soul were completely destroyed. Zhuowen withdrew his fist and stood there, his gaze falling on the two cultivators in the distance. Seeing Zhuowen looking at them, the two practitioners hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged for mercy, hoping that Zhuowen would let them live. The two were very smart. After seeing Zhuowen's strength, they knew that it was useless to run away. They might as well put down their pride and beg for mercy. Maybe Zhuowen would let them go out of compassion. Unfortunately, Zhuowen did not give them a chance. He waved his sleeves and shot out two flowing lights. The two of them didn't even have time to react before they were killed by the two streams of light. After killing Ku Tiancheng and the other two, the energy of the demon mirror fragments in their bodies flowed into Zhuowen's body. It was especially so for Zhuowen. The energy of the demon mirror fragment in his body was too vast. Zhuowen's cultivation had improved by a large margin. However, there was still a long way to go before he could become a Daoyuan master. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to become a Daoyuan master, he would have to rely on the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Thinking of this, Zhuowen was eager to find a place for seclusion. However, in the process of looking for a place for seclusion, Zhuowen often encountered cultivators who were looking for him. Every time a cultivator saw him, they would immediately recognize him and rush towards Zhuowen like moths to a flame, unceremoniously trying to kill him. All along the way to Zhuowen, it was simply a path of slaughter. It was a path of bones that was built with blood and piles of bones. In the huge square of the Huangji clan, the sun-moon demonic mirror stood quietly at the top of the central tower. At this moment, the sun-moon demonic mirror displayed the names of the people who were listed in order. There were only a total of 100 names. Among the 100 names displayed on the mirror, the first name was Galaxy of Stars, the second name was Huangju, and the third to fifth names were Lu Long, Zhao Nianmeng, and Ku Tiancheng respectively. At the head of the square, Huang Wu stood with his hands behind his back. He smiled as he looked at the first and second names displayed on the sun-moon demonic mirror. Big Brother, Galaxy of Stars and Huang Ju did not disappoint us. They took the first and second places respectively. The fat second head, Huang Shan, grinned and laughed loudly. His voice was loud and arrogant. Congratulations to the two heads. The fourth prince and the fifth prince are geniuses among the direct descendants. This is really a blessing to the Huangji clan. Together with the first prince, the Huangji clan's meteoric rise is just around the corner. That's right, that's right. The Huangji clan will be even more prosperous under the leadership of the princes. Many hall masters in the square cupped their hands and congratulated Huang Wu and Huang Shan. Disciplinary Elder, our Hall of Rules Lu Long is now third, but I don't seem to see anyone from your Hall of Penal Law in the top 10. Oh, I'm sorry. I seem to be in the top 100, but I don't see any disciples from your Hall of Penal Law. There was something wrong with my eyes just now. Please forgive me, Disciplinary Elder. In the square, the Hall of Rules Hall Master, Shan Tianlong, stood beside the Disciplinary Elder. He raised his head and looked at the sun-moon demonic mirror. The Disciplinary Elder's eyes were gloomy, but he was very anxious in his heart. In his opinion, it shouldn't be a problem for Chen Fa to enter the top 100, and it was also very likely for Zhuowen to enter the top 10. However, Chen Fa and Zhuowen didn't enter the top 100, let alone the top 10. This made the Disciplinary Elder very suspicious. Did Chen Fa and Zhuowen get eliminated? However, after looking around, he found that Chen Fa and Zhuowen were still sitting cross-legged around the central tower. There were no signs of them waking up. It was obvious that the two of them hadn't been eliminated. Suddenly, everyone noticed that there was a change in the top of the tower. An unfamiliar name quickly jumped up and landed in the second position, pushing Huang Ju to the third position. Everyone focused their eyes and found that the name in the second position was Zhuowen. To everyone, this name was extremely unfamiliar. Many of them had never heard of this name before. Who is this person? How come I've never heard of a genius called Zhuowen in the Huangji clan? To be able to enter the top 10, he must be a famous genius in the Huangji clan. It's really strange that I've never heard of this person. When Zhuowen's name entered the second position, it caused a great uproar in the square. Discussions were like a tsunami, wave after wave, layer after layer. The Disciplinary Elder, who was originally frowning, almost jumped up in joy when he found that Zhuowen's name was in the second position. Shan Tianlong, who was standing beside the Disciplinary Elder, had a gloomy face. He was familiar with the name Zhuowen. He knew that this guy had the lowest cultivation among the disciples sent by the Disciplinary Elder. He was only the master of the heavenly law. Before the start of the High God competition, Shan Tianlong had mocked Zhuowen's cultivation. Chapter 2748. Breaking through to the Daoyuan master realm. Looking at the complacent expression on the enforcement elder's face, Shan Tianlong was extremely displeased and said coldly, Zhuowen should be lucky to have found the underground space with a large number of demonic mirror fragments. However, this can only mean that he is lucky. The real ranking is actually decided in the last month, before the end of the High God Assembly. This kid's cultivation is so weak that he is at the bottom of the High God Assembly. If he can't keep so many demonic mirror fragments, I'm afraid he will be eliminated very soon. The enforcement elder didn't reply. He knew that Shan Tianlong was only saying this because he wanted to save face. However, he knew Zhuowen's strength. He knew that with Zhuowen's strength, he had the confidence to enter the top 10. Even if it was the final battle royale, it wouldn't be a problem for him to remain in the top 10. Seeing that the enforcement elder didn't say anything, Shan Tianlong snorted coldly and didn't say anything. He didn't want to look for trouble. Who is this Zhuowen? When did such a genius appear in our Huangji clan? At the front of the square, Huang Wu frowned slightly and couldn't help but ask Huang Wuqi and the other higher-ups behind him. However, the answer he received was that they didn't know. Even Huang Wuqi didn't know who Zhuowen was. This person's luck is pretty good. He should have found the huge vein of the demonic mirror fragments and obtained a large number of demonic mirror fragments. That's why his ranking jumped from the top 100 to the second place in an instant. However, this kid's luck won't always be so good. When the real battle royale begins, this kid should be eliminated immediately. Huang Wuqi shook his head and didn't care about Zhuowen, who occupied the second place, at all. Huang Wu and Huang Shan nodded. They believed that Zhuowen must have found a large number of demonic mirror fragments by luck to occupy the second place. As for this kid's strength and talent, it was probably just passable. They were afraid that he would be exposed soon. At the same time, 3 figures suddenly stood up around the tower. One of the figures caused an uproar among the surrounding cultivators. It was because this figure was none other than Ku Tianqing, the number 1 genius of Tianluo Hall, who was one of the 5 most favored candidates this time. At this moment, Ku Tianqing walked out of the fence with an ugly expression and walked towards the team from Tianluo Hall. The hall master of Tianluo Hall was an old man with a rosacea nose. When he saw that Ku Tianqing had been eliminated just like that, his face was especially gloomy. Tianqing, who eliminated you? Is it the galaxy of stars, Huang Ju, or Zhao Nianmeng and Lu Long? The old man with rosacea asked. Ku Tianqing sighed softly and shook his head, saying, I don't know that person's name, but that person is very strong. He is only the Heavenly Law Lord, but he has the strength of the Heavenly Fate Lord and even the Lord of Profound Secrets. I was eliminated by that person. Now, he was completely dispirited. He never thought that he and the white-robed young man would be so terrifyingly strong. It was unbelievable that a Heavenly Tao Lord could kill him. Ku Tianqing was not the only one who found it unbelievable. Even the old man with rosacea found it unbelievable. He thought that his disciple's brain might have gone haywire. How could he say such nonsense now? The news that Ku Tianqing was defeated by a Heavenly Tao Lord spread quietly among the people in the square. Of course, everyone treated it as a joke. No one believed that a mere Heavenly Tao Lord could defeat Ku Tianqing, who was already a half-step Heavenly Fate Lord. After all, the gap between their realms was too big. Zhuowen was covered in blood. Finally, he found a natural cave. This was the most secluded place he could find along the way. Now that Zhuowen went out, almost all the cultivators he encountered would attack him. He knew that it was because of the 100,000 demon mirror fragments on him. Although Zhuowen was covered in blood, Zhuowen knew that he was not seriously injured. Most of the blood on his body belonged to other cultivators. Zhuowen spent half a day to set up a huge defensive array, surveillance array, and trap and kill array at the entrance of the cave. Then, he entered the depths of the cave. Finally, I have time to absorb the demon mirror fragment. I hope that these demon mirror fragments can help my cultivation to advance to the Daoyuan Master Realm. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He took out a pile of demon mirror fragments and began to absorb the rich energy in these demon mirror fragments crazily. Time flew by. Another month had passed. Half a year had passed since the beginning of the bustling God Conference. The battles between the cultivators in the endless world were getting more and more intense. The matter of the 100,000 demon mirror fragments on Zhuowen's body was slowly forgotten by everyone in the past month. If Zhuowen were to appear outside again, he wouldn't be in a situation where he was besieged on all sides and wanted to be beaten up by everyone. Boom! The depths of a cave suddenly exploded, and a figure slowly walked out from the dust. His entire body was elegant, and not a single speck of dust was stained on him. This person was Zhuowen, who had been in seclusion for a month. At that moment, Zhuowen's eyes were bright and full of expression, like the bright stars in the sky. Finally, I have broken through to the Daoyuan Master Realm. However, the energy in my Daoyuan Master Realm is so rich that it is no less than the peak of Hunyuan Master. Now, even if I don't use the power of the Panga Sacred Body, I can still fight with the peak of Hunyuan Master Realm with my Daoyuan Master Realm. I can even have an overwhelming advantage. Zhuowen smiled faintly as he muttered to himself. The harvest of this month could be said to be extremely bountiful for him. Soon, Zhuowen's communication jade charm rang. Zhuowen picked it up and found that it was a message from Chen Fa. After reading the message, Zhuowen took out the spacetime roulette, chose a direction, turned into a streamer, and disappeared. According to the message from Chen Fa, he found the huge demon mirror fragments Earth Vein and needed Zhuowen's help. Time was running out. This was a world full of steel. Everything here was made of steel. Whether it was flowers, trees, birds, or beasts, they were all made of steel. In a steel canyon, Chen Fa and his 5 fellow disciples were trapped by a group of people. The leader of this group was an extremely arrogant and domineering young man. His yellow hair stood up like the spikes on a hedgehog. He was very unique. At this moment, the young man was holding a communication jade charm in his hand and was sending some kind of message. "Lu Long, what do you want?" Chen Fa saw Lu Long using the communication jade charm and could not help but ask anxiously. The young man named Lu Long casually threw the communication jade talisman in his hand at Chen Fa's feet after he finished inputting the information. He said indifferently, "Chen Fa, your communication jade talisman is pretty useful. You managed to gather all the brothers and sisters of the Hall of Penal Law in no time. By the way, we are still missing that Heavenly Law Master Trash. I have already sent a message to that Trash and gave him the location. I think that Trash will be here soon. When that Trash arrives, I will take care of all the participants in the Hall of Penal Law." Chapter 2749. Lu Long. Chen Fa's eyes were gloomy as he glared at Lu Long. "Lu Long, are you planning to eliminate all of us from the Hall of Punishment?" Lu Long chuckled. "Chen Fa, you're really slow. I used your communication talisman to gather so many of your brothers and sisters, and you're only reacting now?" Chen Fa had a guilty expression as he faced his 5 brothers and sisters. "Junior brother, junior sister, I, Chen Fa, have let you down." The 5 people standing behind Chen Fa were all disciples of the Hall of Punishment, 3 men and 2 women. Zhuowen had seen them before entering the convention. The 5 of them shook their heads and comforted Chen Fa not to blame himself too much. "Senior brother Chen, senior brother Zhuo is very strong. If he comes, I think he can save us." One of the female disciples was quite optimistic. Chen Fa was silent, but there was also some hope in his heart. Back then, Zhuowen had displayed his might in the Hall of Punishment and defeated Zhou Ling. One had to know that Zhou Ling was also a half-step Heaven's Mandate Master, the same as Lu Long. Although Lu Long's combat strength was slightly stronger than Zhou Ling's, it was not by much. Since Zhuowen could defeat Zhou Ling, there was a high chance that he could defeat Lu Long. Of course, as the number 1 genius of the Hall of Punishment, Lu Long's strength wasn't limited to this. He was much stronger than ordinary half-step Heaven's Mandate Masters and could reach the strength of ordinary Heaven's Mandate Masters. In Chen Fa's opinion, even if Zhuowen couldn't defeat Lu Long, it shouldn't be a problem for him to save them from Lu Long. At this thought, Chen Fa felt a lot more relaxed. Lu Long's face was full of disdain. "Oh, when did the Hall of Beheadings and Executions fall so low?" he mocked. "You're relying on the ant-like Heavenly Tao Master to save you? And you really believe that the ant-like Heavenly Tao Master has the ability to save you? Don't make me laugh my head off. If senior brother Zhuo was here, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to laugh. You should know that even our Vice Hall Master was defeated by him. You're only a half-step Heaven's Will Lord." The female disciple was indignant. Lu Long's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a contemplative look. If what this female disciple said was true, then Zhuowen's strength was too strong. Moreover, he was only the Heavenly Tao Master. "Making things up? Are you trying to scare me?" Lu Long walked up and slapped the female disciple's face, causing her to fall to the ground, barely breathing. "What is Zhou Ling? He's just a guy who knows how to curry favor with others to obtain cultivation resources. How can he be compared to me? Back when I wasn't a half-step Heaven's Will Lord, I might have been afraid of Zhou Ling. But now that I'm also a half-step Heaven's Will Lord, I can defeat that trash in one move. It doesn't matter if the heavenly Tao Master you speak of is really that strong. If he comes in front of me, I can still trample him under my feet and ruthlessly trample him. Lu Long kicked the female disciple again, causing her to groan in pain and fall unconscious. Chen Fa and the others hurriedly brought the female disciple back to their side. Their eyes were filled with hatred as they glared at the arrogant Lu Long. Zhuo Wen drove the space-time roulette at an extremely fast speed like a stream of light. After leaving seclusion, Zhuo Wen had used a secret technique to change his appearance slightly. At the same time, he also concealed his aura. More than a month ago, he was besieged by many cultivators and fought a bloody battle. Now that he thought about it, it was somewhat tiring. Therefore, in order to avoid being discovered, Zhuo Wen restrained himself. Fortunately, although Zhuo Wen encountered many cultivators along the way, none of them recognized Zhuo Wen. Zhuo Wen knew that if they recognized him, he would have been besieged long ago. At that time, he would definitely be in a difficult situation. Zhuo Wen didn't want to expose himself so quickly. He knew that in the later stages of the Flourishing God Conference, there would definitely be a large battle royale spontaneously. At that time, it would be a real killing situation. At the same time, it was also the most crucial time of the Flourishing God Conference. The final ranking of the Flourishing God Conference would be completely decided at that time. I'm about to reach the location Brother Chen sent me. Zhuo Wen exclaimed softly. His powerful spiritual sense had already swept the scene within a range of 3,000 meters. The world he had entered was a world full of steel. Every blade of grass and every tree was cast from steel. In a certain canyon in this world, there was a group of people confronting each other. Rather than calling it a confrontation, it was more accurate to say that one side had surrounded the cultivators of the other side, who were at a disadvantage. Zhuo Wen was no stranger to the group of people who were at a disadvantage. They were Chen Fa and the others from the Hall of Penal Laws. Zhuo Wen was also no stranger to the insolent young man who was leading the group. He was the #1 genius of the Hall of Penal Laws. Lu Long. Chen Fa had mentioned this person to him before because the Hall of Penal Laws and the Hall of Penal Laws had never been on good terms. The disciples of the Hall of Penal Laws participating in the Flourishing God Conference would definitely be targeted by Lu Long and his group. At that time, Chen Fa had only wanted to give Zhuo Wen a reminder. At the same time, Zhuo Wen noticed the communication jade talisman that was casually thrown on the ground. He recognized the communication jade talisman. It was Chen Fa's. Soon, Zhuo Wen figured out the details of this matter. Most likely, there was no such thing as a huge demonic mirror fragment earth vein in this place. Moreover, this news was not sent by Chen Fa himself. It should have been deliberately released by Lu Long. His purpose was obvious. He wanted Zhuo Wen to come and let Lu Long catch them all in one fell swoop. Thinking up to here, Zhuo Wen sneered in his heart and didn't conceal it. Instead, he leisurely charged towards the gorge, and under the gazes of Lu Long and the others, he descended into the gorge. When Lu Long and the others saw Zhuo Wen land in front of them, they could not help but be stunned. Obviously, they did not expect Zhuo Wen to be so arrogant. He knew that they were in the canyon, but not only did he not run away, he even landed so calmly. Lu Long from the Hall of Penal Laws? Zhuo Wen landed on the ground and slowly walked towards Lu Long. Lu Long grinned, and looked Zhuo Wen up and down, saying, "It seems that my luck is quite good. I caught a fat sheep. I heard that a month ago, you found a huge demonic mirror fragment earth vein? And you also obtained 100,000 demonic mirror fragments inside. Is that true?" Chapter 2750. Killing ants like killing ants. Yes, I did obtain 100,000 demon mirror fragments. To Lu Long and the others' surprise, Zhuo Wen admitted it generously. Chen Fa and the others looked anxious. They felt that it was unwise for Zhuowen to admit it like that. However, there was nothing they could do. Right now, they couldn't even protect themselves, not to mention having to worry about Zhuowen. They simply couldn't care less. Lu Long's eyes were filled with fire. He shrugged at Zhuowen and said arrogantly, "If that's the case, hurry up and hand it over. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep your life." Zhuowen sneered. Lu Long had a good idea. He stretched out his hand to ask for the demon mirror fragments as if they were his own. "Idiot, it's been a month. I've already absorbed the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. How can I give them to you?" Zhuowen said indifferently. Lu Long's eyes darkened. He laughed sinisterly and said, "Since you've already absorbed them, you should die. After I kill you, the energy of the demon mirror fragments in your body will naturally be mine." After saying that, Lu Long took a step forward and pointed with his right finger. An extremely strange black thunderbolt condensed on Lu Long's fingertip. The black thunderbolt was extremely dark and deep. It was like a strange energy from hell blooming with a terrifying light. "Thunder Soul Demonic Finger, you'll die here today to fulfill my wish. After killing you, I'll be able to completely advance to the heavenly fate master. In this boundless world, who can compete with me?" Lu Long's eyes were ferocious and full of pride. When he pointed with his finger, the black thunderbolt cut through the void and formed a thunderstorm that covered Zhuowen. The moment Lu Long made his move, the 8 cultivators beside Lu Long also made their move. The 8 cultivators were very smart. They knew very well that if they attacked and killed a cultivator at the same time, they would also be able to get a share of the loot from the cultivator and obtain a portion of the demon mirror fragment's energy when the cultivator died. Lu Long did not say much about the little scheme of his fellow disciples. He just turned a blind eye to it. In his opinion, the power of his Thunder Soul demonic finger was the most terrifying. It would definitely be a fatal blow to Zhuowen. After Zhuowen's death, he would undoubtedly obtain the most demon mirror fragments. He did not particularly mind sharing some of them with his senior and junior brothers. After all, they were from the same sect. Since they could meet in this boundless world, he should naturally take care of them. Bam bam bam! In the endless thunderstorm there was an endless series of terrifying attacks. It was like a chain of explosions, and the energy that escaped was extremely terrifying. Chin Fa's face was gloomy, and the female disciple's face was as pale as snow. There was a look of dismay in her eyes. She knew that everything was because of her. If she did not reveal Zhuowen's background, Lu Long would not have used his full strength at the beginning to target Zhuowen. Now, Lu Long used a killing move at the beginning. Coupled with the help of the 8 fellow disciples, they really had no reason to believe that Zhuowen could survive such a terrifying explosion. Just as Lu Long and the others were waiting for the energy of the demon mirror fragments on Zhuowen to flow into their bodies, they all realized that something was not right. Immediately, they realized that a boundless ocean had appeared around them. It was not an ordinary ocean, but a space-time ocean filled with space-time vortexes. At the end of the ocean, there was a huge purple sun floating in the sky. "Waning sun of the sea." A faint voice sounded. Immediately, above the purple sun, a white-robed young man walked out slowly. The white-robed young man's eyes were cold. He pointed his right finger, and the calm space-time ocean set off monstrous wave. The terrifying waves were higher than the previous one. The 9 people, including Lu Long, were in the middle of the ocean. They were all covered by the huge dragons, and their screams were heard continuously. When the huge waves calmed down, except for Lu Long, the other 8 people were all brought to the bottom of the ocean by the huge waves and died completely. Space-time supernatural power? You bastard! Lu Long's eyes were filled with fear. He pointed his hands, and black thunderbolts swept out like electric snakes. They wriggled up into the sky and broke through the huge waves one after another. Lu Long's combat strength was indeed not bad. The space-time confinement power of the space-time ocean was extremely terrifying. However, after adapting to it for a period of time, he could move freely and his speed was not slow. I will definitely kill you. Lu Long's eyes were wide open. He split open a huge wave and shot towards Zhuowen. Black thunderbolts wrapped around his body, making him look like a thunder god descending from the sky. Except for him, all the disciples of the Law Hall had been eliminated by Zhuowen. Lu Long recalled that before entering the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, he had patted his chest and promised Hall Master Shan Tianlong that he would lead the disciples of the Law Hall to get into the top 100 and that he would definitely do it. Now, all 8 of his senior brothers had been eliminated by Zhuowen right before his eyes. To him, this was undoubtedly a resounding slap to his face, and he was unable to endure it. Zhuowen looked indifferently at Lu Long, who was rushing towards him. He pointed his right finger at the purple sun in the sky and pulled. Immediately, the purple sun fell rapidly and smashed onto Lu Long. Lu Long was smashed to the point that he almost vomited bile. His entire body was smashed into the depths of the space-time sea. When Lu Long struggled to leave the depths of the space-time sea, the purple sun smashed down again under Zhuowen's control. All of Lu Long's struggles were in vain as he was smashed into the depths of the space-time sea once again. After repeating this several times, Lu Long could no longer hold on and did not resurface. The purple sun rose once again and hung in the sky, emitting a purple light. When the space-time sea had completely disappeared, Chen Fa and the others finally regained their senses. They hurriedly came before Zhuowen and looked at Zhuowen as if they were looking at a monster. Lu Long was very powerful. He was much stronger than Zhou Ling back then. Originally, they thought that it would be a fierce battle between Zhuowen and Lu Long. However, they did not expect that Lu Long was like a puppet in Zhuowen's hands. He was easily suppressed and killed. Brother Zhuo, are you really the Heavenly Tao Master? Chen Fa was stunned and could not help but ask the question in his heart. Zhuowen smiled and said, I'm not the Heavenly Tao Master. I've already advanced to become a Tao Yuan Master. When I was just the Heavenly Tao Master, I defeated Zhou Ling. This Lu Long's strength is indeed not bad, but my strength has also increased a lot. Killing Lu Long is like killing an ant. Chen Fa and the others were shocked and looked at Zhuowen with reverence. Among the geniuses of the entire Huangji family, only the galaxy of stars dared to say that killing Lu Long was like killing an ant. Now, there was another Zhuowen. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.